The gods, you're listening to the hottest radio network on the planet. I'm Yusef. Today's show, thank you for the donation, Sir Ray, the 4 bills, something light, $4.99 piece. I appreciate that. I appreciate the donations. Appreciate the energy, the return of energy. You know, that's what a lot of people have to learn about. They have to learn how energy operates. You know, energy flows in and out. It's a flow of in and out. But I appreciate all the listeners and all my subscribers. I appreciate you. I really do. Okay. Call-in number today. If you don't see it on the screen, it's 563-999-3616. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about this word I hear being thrown about, operating in the private. And this is not going to take me long. I'm going to go to the phone lines. But I hear people make this statement a lot. It's kind of like with the tax exempt thing, you know. So I see that there needs to be some clarification on a lot of things. I see people are posting links to Carl Miller, the constitutional guy. And I have to ask, do you even understand the Constitution? Do you understand what Carl Miller was talking about? Do you even know if Carl Miller was correct in what he was saying? I'm going to examine some of his videos because a lot of people always like to reference him as the constitutional guy, and I kind of listen to him, and sometimes I kind of question some of the things that he say, but I haven't really looked at it very clearly because I read the Constitution for myself, and I have a very good understanding of its application in the public. And so does someone like Howard Freeman, when he said people think, and the other guy who said people think the Constitution is this all-encompassing document, and the Constitution is not an all-encompassing document. It only applies in the public. It has no application in the private whatsoever. Constitution has no application in the private. It protects private property and private property rights, and it's protecting you from the government because the Constitution gives them a delegation of authority, and it also restrains them, gives them a limited government. That's what's called limited government. So with that, check. Keep people talking about the volume is low. Okay. I know what they mean when they say the volume is low. The volume is not low. Volume is nice volume. I don't know what y'all talking about. Is volume too low? You need to turn up the speakers. Sounds good. I know it's somebody always complaining about something. The volume's too low. No, it's not. My volume is not low. It's the volume is low on whatever you're listening to me on. You need to turn up the volume so you can't hear me. There wasn't nothing wrong with the volume in the first place. Y'all tripping. Anyway, he's a Taurus. I'm not a Taurus Gemini. I'm a straight Taurus. I don't know what a Taurus Gemini is. I'm not on no borderline of the Gemini sign and nothing. I'm 100% pure bred bull. All right, that's exactly what I am. I'm not no damn riding on no fence, on no other zodiac sign or nothing like that. Do not associate me with no goddamn Geminis. I'm not two-faced it. I give it to you raw and uncut. Some people can't handle that. That's why they don't have no damn business on this channel. All right. He said, but in the constant, let me read what's going on in the comments. It says, but in a constant state of emergency, war on this and that, and the other way, railroad the people, microphone gain, don't lean backwards, stay close to the mic, whatever. All right, let's see. What we got? Let's see. It's wild to me how in tune Yusef is with his craft. Yeah, I am, you know. It was easy. Well, anyway, today we're going to talk about what does it mean to operate in the private. Now, I have a lot of people that like to use this phrase, operate in the private. I don't know what that means. Hold on for one quick second, y'all. Hold on. Be right back. Just hold on. Don't get upset. I'll be right back. So nasty. $1 Million Baby. I like that song. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Okay. Now, as I was saying, this thing about operating in the private, I hear this a lot. What does it mean to operate in the private? Now, this is kind of like some street slang to me, operate in the private. Let me tell you this. I want you to listen very closely to me, all right? Very closely. The issue is taxation. The issue is taxation. All right? That's the only issue. Am I involved in an activity that can get me taxed, or am I tax exempt, or am I involved in a in some conduct that is not subject to a taxation? That's the only question today, because everything is commerce. So when you say operate in the private, let's use some terminology that will bring clarity to the situation of what we're talking about. It's all a tax. Everything that we're dealing with is about taxes. You're taxed on everything. You got a school tax. You got a property tax. You got a gasoline tax. You're taxed when you go to the grocery store. You're taxed when you get your check, okay? Everything is a tax. Even when you are charged and convicted with a criminal crime or a felony, that's called a tax. It's a tax that they're putting on you. Everything is a tax. So a lot of people will ask me, where do I start, Yusef? Well, Yusef, if somebody is just coming into this space, what would you suggest that they read first? You know, where do I start? And I start with, I'd say the same thing. If you go to Mexico or China and no one there speaks any English, where would you start? All the books are written in Chinese. All the books are written in Spanish. You in this country, and you come to me and say, well, where do I start? I'm trying to get some understanding in this country. You're going to start learning the language. So that's where you can start. You can start with learning the language. So today we're going to start learning the language, and we're going to begin with, definitions of a word. We're going to start with some definitions of some words. Because I know y'all don't like to look up words. I already know you don't like to look up no words. You don't like to look it up. Don't even flex like you do. You don't. All right, so let's look at it. So let's get on the where we at? Let's see. What we configuring. All right, let's go over to my, where is the dashboard? What happened to it? All right, here we go. All right, so now we in SBC University. When you come into SBC University, I'm putting a start here section. It's not done, but this start here is going to be for everybody when you first come to the website. But this is the step-by-step videos when you're this is what you're paying for when you come to SBC University. You're coming to pay for, you're getting instructional videos. And as you can see right here, I have step-by-step videos right here. Introduction, UCC search, commercial security agreement, copyright clearance, UCC 1, registered mail forms, covered letter, Form W-8, affidavit of tax exempt status, affidavit of termination of franchise, whole harmless agreement, getting a 9-8 number, getting a 4-5 EIN for a corp, getting an EIN for a state, getting a 4-5 EIN for the IRS website, filling out your IRS Form 8832, your cover letter for vital statistics, notice letter for vital statistics, chargeback stamp, endorsing the birth certificate, Section 4 review, Section 5 overview, Treasury packet cover letter, international bill of exchange, understanding your UCC 3 form, order for lawful money, and mastering, discharging an indemnity bond. Now, this is so you can all have your paperwork filed and get your paperwork established. In these videos, I read the document and we go over every word of it. When you get through with a security agreement, you're going to be able to say, I read a security agreement. This is how you actually learn the process, is by reading the paperwork. Reading the paperwork will teach you about the process. And I broke them down into individual videos, anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes a piece, maybe 13 minutes. This is 13 minutes. They're not all long or anything like that. They're short videos, but they cover a specific topic as it relates to secured party. All right, so I just wanted to throw that out there for you. All right. So we're going to go to our reference library, our dictionaries. And we're going to let's go to Black's Law Dictionary. And we're going to get the 9th edition. If anybody knows where I can find the 10th and 11th edition in electronic format, let me know. Because I'm going to add it to this. I probably need to do it myself because I got those editions. I don't feel like copying all that shit, though, scanning all that shit in. Let's see, somebody else can do it. We're going to go to the T's. All right, we're going to go to the T's. And we're going to control F, and we're going to put in tax. And we see tax appears in the Black's Law Dictionary in the T section 828 times. That's just in that one section. All right, tax. Let's go and find it real quick. Let's go find it. We're talking about a tax. Here it is right here, tax. Let's read this very closely because a lot of people, they won't read it. So it's right here. It's a noun. Let's read it. Let's see what it says. Because we have to understand this because people say operate in the private. What you're saying is, Yusef, how can I operate without getting taxed? That's what you're asking me. And the reason I'm saying this is because I have to keep reiterating this. We're talking about business. This is the UCC, the Uniform Commercial Code. Commercial code. It's not the nationality code. It's not get free shit code. It's not any of those things that you've been told. It's not something you have to be afraid of or anything like that. It is just simply the codification of the law merchant. How are we going to do business in a world where there is no money? Okay? So taxes obviously are involved in this whole entire process because everything is a tax. So what is a tax exactly? I know you think you know what a tax is, and I know you think you know how taxes are paid. But let's look at a simple definition and see if we can garner some sort of deeper understanding of this term, tax. A charge. We need to look that word up. A charge. Usually monetary. So is there a tax other than something monetary? It says usually. That leaves it open for the possibility that a tax could be something other than monetary. Imposed by the government on persons, entities, and transactions, not human beings, or property to yield public revenue. Because tax law is in the public. It has nothing to do with the private. It's in the public. Tax law is public law, not private law. It's in the public. Okay, so now we have an explanation. Most broadly, the term embraces all governmental impositions on the person's property, privileges, occupations, and enjoyment of the people, and includes duties, imposts, and excises. Although a tax, now pay attention to this part. I know this is going to fly over some people's heads. It just does. And this is why I have to be sarcastic and condescending to draw your attention to it. Because you'll take things like this lightly. People will call in, they won't ask me nothing about it or anything like that. I'll try to point it out, but for some reason, it just escapes people's observation. And it's right there in front of your face. And then you complain, and these people tell you what the fuck they're doing right in your face. Okay. Although a tax is often thought of as being pecuniary in nature. If you don't know what the word pecuniary means, it deals with money. Although a tax is often thought of as being something about money in nature, it is not necessarily payable in money. This is the part that everybody who has a criminal case can't seem to connect the dots. They can't connect the dots. These people just told you a tax can be paid, but they don't necessarily be paid in money. So if you're not paying a tax in money, how else are you paying it? If you're not using money to pay a tax, how are you going to pay it? You're going to pay your debt to society. You're going to pay it with your labor. You're going to pay it with your time. They're going to put your ass in prison. And you're going to pay your debt to society. Taxes are the enforced proportional contributions. This word contribution is another word. There's something called a war contribution. Let's look at it, because I've heard people say, well, we're in a state of emergency. We're in a state of emergency. After that, we're going to look up the word war contribution. And you're going to see that war contribution is shortened to the word contribution. So taxes are the enforced proportional contributions from persons and property levied by the state by virtue of its sovereignty for the support of government and for all public needs. Where does government exercise its sovereignty? Only within the bounds and the ambit of its delegated authority, and that is pursuant to the Constitution for the United States of America. And you find that they exercise that plenary power within that 10-mile square and all their insular possessions as defined in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution. The definition of taxes, often referred to as Cooley's definition, has been quoted and endorsed or approved expressly or otherwise by many different courts. While this definition of taxes characterizes them as contributions, other definitions refer to them as impost duty or impost charges, burdens, or exactions, but these variations in phraseology are of no practical importance. Now, let's look at a word real quick. Though all those words we should look up, but let's look up this word war contribution. Let's look up this word war contribution. War contribution, Control F. Control F. War contribution. There it is right there. War contribution. An extraordinary payment imposed by an occupying power on the population of an occupied territory during wartime, often shortened to contribution. You see how you can just read the dictionary and just find shit out? I mean, you just start reading the dictionary. You know, I spent like 6 weeks just reading words. Just words, you know, just looking at words, you know, just going in here and just looking at words and just finding stuff out, just looking at words. I'm doing a live. Words. I'm doing a live. Okay. All right, so war contribution. All right. So where we at? Okay, so just knock me, just take me all off of space. I said one time, they called back. All right, and let me just turn this on. But the reason I have to answer it because they'll call me on the other phone. They'll start calling me on other phones. So, you know, let me turn this phone off, man, while I'm doing this. Turn this off, man. Okay. All right, so I wanted to bring your attention, when you see this word contribution, this gets into the Libra Code, and are we under some sort of, you know, martial law? And this gets into these discussions about them being foreign agents and you being an enemy of the state because you're in the democracy and you're not in the republic. You're not in the constitutional republics. You're an enemy of the country because the real nature of the country is that we have a Republican form of government, but you're not helping exercise that. So you're an enemy of the state. You know, these type of things right here. So is this some sort of war contribution? Is that the reason that they have that? I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm just drawing your attention to things that make you say, That's it. So in operating in the private, the ultimate question is, are we making contributions to the public? And if so, in what manner are we doing it? Now, I see a lot of people, and I want to bring this to an end too. I see a lot of individuals, they talk about, yeah, you want Federal Reserve notes. You are a fucking idiot. You stupid. You're stupid. Let me tell you why you're stupid. Because money is an effect. It doesn't matter if it is gold, silver, platinum, Federal Reserve notes, marbles, racks of tuna, whatever, okay, cigarettes. It's a effect. There is no power in the effect. All power is in the cause. The cause of obtaining any form of medium of exchange is the mind. If you don't have Federal Reserve notes, and you need to listen to me, it is only because you don't know how to think properly. It doesn't mean you're not capable of obtaining it. It's just you refuse to accept the fact that everything in nature works from the inside out and not the outside in. You keep associating your outside circumstances with your present situation instead of understanding it's the thoughts that you are emanating out into the universe that are redounding back to you, and your situation is simply a reflection of how you think. It has nothing to do with Federal Reserve notes. Some of you just can't handle that, and you will continue to suffer. I'm telling you, if you're young, you're going to suffer all your life. I promise you, until you accept that. It's in every religious text and everything. You're going to suffer until you accept the fact that thoughts become things, that you are the creator and you are in control of your world. As long as you don't accept that, you will continue to suffer. If you're young, the sooner you accept it, go read Think and Grow Rich. Go read The Science of Getting Rich. I'm reading a book right now, Beyond Positive Thinking. This is a real good book. And I got another one that is a beast. This book is so good. Sorry, y'all, I had to go get this book. This is T. Harvey Eker, The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. He actually has a YouTube channel, and I haven't gotten into his videos on YouTube, but this book is a very good book. So on the law, all these guys, these wealthy guys, all of them talk about the law of attraction. But for some reason, people who don't have money they just don't listen to it. You know, it's like they think it's something else. Oh, he's corrupt. Oh, the rich people are evil. You know, they do corruption. That type, when you hear people talk like that, they will never have anything. They will never get away from them as fast as you can. Keep those type of people out of your life who say all wealthy people are evil. Money is the root of all evil. It's not. It's the love of money is the root of all evil. But money is the root of all evil. And then those people who talk like that, just stay away from them because it's infectious. You got to stay away from the unlucky. That's one of the 48 laws of power, too. They understand the law of attraction, too. Avoid the unlucky and avoid the negative people. They don't understand that. It's enough wealth in the universe for everybody to be wealthy. It's enough wealth on this planet right now for everybody on planet Earth to be a billionaire. It's a shame that 15% of the money is, 85% of the money is concentrated in like 2% of the hands of the planet. And everybody else out here is fighting over 15% of the money. It's crazy. It's crazy. But they will blame an outside circumstance for that instead of looking at what they are doing and emulating success instead of denigrating it. However, back to what I was saying. So this is a war contribution, shortened to contribution. So it gives you something to think about. So when we operate privately, what we are saying is that we want to conduct business in a way where we either avoid taxes or we mitigate our tax liability. We reduce it. We get write-offs and things like that. This is all business. I'm trying to put people's mind in the right frame because a lot of people come into this space with the wrong idea about things. I see it. I've been reading it. They got the wrong. They think they're gonna get a whole bunch of free shit. They think that, that they have the right to do anything in the public they want to do. And these people are making sovereign citizen videos about you, and they are right about a lot of things that they're saying. Some of the things they're saying is incorrect. Like when you go into the courtroom, you ask the judge questions, they refuse to answer. That's always incorrect, and they are committing treason when they do that. But but secretly behind the curtains, they've been told not to reveal the true nature of the court system. But however, if you are out here living in a municipality, then you need to understand the rules of living in a municipality. It goes back to, like, I always like to give this example. If you look in the medieval age with kings and things of that nature, when you came upon a kingdom, there would usually be a wall around it. And then there would be guards at the gate. And when you came in, you may have your swords with you, and the guards will stop you at the gate and say, "What business do you have here?" And they'll say, "Well, blah, blah, blah. Well, leave your swords here." And they'll let them go in the kingdom and conduct their business. All right. That's what a municipality is. When they show you the line, the city line. Now, a lot of people, they think, this is what the Moors, I think, they have an issue, because they keep saying this is our land. The problem I have with that is they seem to be oblivious to the fact that these people killed people to take the land. So I think that sometimes they're delusional in some of the things that they say, because they took the land through war. And I've read all the court paperwork on it. You can't not adjudicate anything judicially when something is obtained through war. There's nothing to adjudicate, because the branches of Congress declares war, and the judiciary we have separation of powers. They can't say nothing about that. We got to understand that we have in our government a three-headed hydra, and a legislative, executive, and judicial branch of government. They form checks and balances on each other. No one branch of government is above the other. People like to think the president is the king or some shit like that, or what has the president done for us? The president enforces the laws. He don't write them. They be tricking the shit out of everybody. What did Biden, not Biden or Trump can do anything for you. What the fuck is wrong with you? Why don't you learn some basic civics? You need to be focusing on your state representatives and who you sending up there to sit on that Senate and those Senate seats. At the end of the day, the object of the game is to learn how to operate in the private without a social security number. Let me go to the phone lines now. Let's go to the phone lines. I'm going to answer, because it's just that simple. I don't have much to say on it. It's that simple. This is about taxes. This is about business. It's about mitigating your tax liability or avoiding, not evading. If you evade taxes, you're going to go to prison. Or at least you're going to get a charge. Y'all don't know if you're going to go to prison, but you're going to get charged with something. All right. So right now we got, we're at area code. Let me see what area code we in. Okay, we're going to stop first in area code, what is Idaho? Let's go to Idaho. You have to hit 1 on your phone if you want to talk. You have to hit 1 on your phone if you're listening. 208-4487. You're on the line. What's on your mind? This thing is tripping. All right, sorry about that. Okay, you're on the air.
All right. I'm first in line. Hell yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
I got this, the notification, but peace to the gods and peace to the goddesses, brother. Peace to you and prosperity. I was right in the middle of watching the last live you were doing when I got the notification, so I was like, all right, pause, going live. But yeah, I'm really glad I got the I'm first line. Anyway, to answer your question, what does it mean to operate in the private? I only know the legal definition of private, which is relating or belonging to an individual opposed to the public or government. Is that right?
That is it. That is it. So so if you're going to do that, you got to do. It can't be anything that is that the word is a minimum contact. So a minimum contact is something that attaches you to the government. So what would be a minimum contact that attaches you to the government? What do you think are minimum contacts? An example of one would be putting your children in public school. Name some additional ones.
I would say the marriage license, because when you have a social security number, anything that they ask you, or I mean, for example, like if you want to get a car, get a loan, whatever, and they ask you for that social security number, anything that has anything to do with the social security number, that's the minimum contact. So your kids have social security numbers, so they're gonna ask you, what's your kid's social security number? Oh, dentist, you gotta take them to the dentist. What's the kid's social security number? What's your social security number? Right?
Right. Here's the thing. I always wondered why in the hospital, when you have your child, they come in, if you don't want to get your child a social security number, they're going to send like 5 nurses in there to try to convince you to get a social security number. I'm like, what the fuck for? Why does my child who just came into the world need a social security number? Why don't y'all think, man?
Right. Yeah. And
go ahead.
For real, that's a really good point. And it's like, wait a minute. The social security number, it's voluntary. It's not mandatory. And if they want to get it when they're 18 years of age, then my kids will do that. But until then, I'm not getting them a social security number. So, you're absolutely right. I agree with you on that.
Yes, I was just always kind of curious about why the social security number. But keep on going. What else you got?
So I was going to ask, in regards to the last live you had, I was on the part about the CPN, and I always go back to what you always tell us to read, the fraud mortgage report of 2008, and footer 35 about CPNs are illegal.
Right.
So I'm still a little confused. How would I go about getting it? Like, couldn't I just go to a CPA and tell them, like, hey,
no.
I want a CPN.
A CPA, what does CPA stand for? What does CPA stand for? What does the word stand for?
Certified Public Accountant.
Okay, what does CPN stand for?
Credit privacy number.
Do public and private mix?
No, they do not, and that's one of the 4 rules of the game.
So why would you think a public accountant can go and get you a private number? See,
honestly, I figured go ahead.
No, I keep it simple for you. Public and private don't mix. Everybody in the public, they don't have nothing to do with the private. That's why attorneys are always saying, what are you talking about? Yeah. That's not real and shit, because they talking from the public perspective. They know nothing about the private. Attorneys don't even know. Most attorneys don't even understand that we have a Republican form of government. So they don't understand. They think wholly from the position of the public. You go to a CPA, they think wholly they have a license, all right? They're thinking wholly from the position of the public. Now, granted, I've dealt with CPAs that understand the importance of a CPN, but I don't know what to tell you to get a CPN. The only thing I can tell you is you can create one yourself. And how you would do that, since everybody's watching, this right here is what he's referring to, the mortgage fraud report, when it says credit privacy numbers are 9-digit file numbers that follow the same algorithm as Social Security account numbers. Currently, federal law allows individuals to legally use CPNs for financial reporting and protects those individuals who do not wish to disclose their SSAN. Individuals who acquire CPNs are completely responsible for any debt they incur using this number. Acquiring a CPN is supposed to be a free service. Therefore, websites that offer CPNs for a fee are most likely scammers. And that was on this FBI page on the FBI. Now, the reason for this, that they're telling the truth, is because the credit bureaus are not governmental entities. The only people you're required to give a social security number to is governmental entities. And social security numbers were never created as a form of identification. And you can see that right here if you just go to, and I just wish people would think. I wish people would think. I just wish people would think SSN, not.
Those are the old Social Security numbers, right? I mean, the old Social Security number cards that say for tax purposes and not for identification, right?
Right. Not SSN.
Yeah. My dad had one of those.
I had one. You know, a long time ago, they stopped putting those words on there. I had one of these cards when they first came out. Like right here, you can see it, not for identification. You know, not for identification. A lot of cards at first, they had all of these on there. Then they stopped printing them on there, on the cards. But it's not for identity. The Social Security card wasn't created for identification purposes. But it started being, so I read the Social Security Administration, they have issued a memorandum that basically explains how the Social Security number started to be used as identification. And it's basically because of y'all did it on your own. Everybody started requesting it. Now, it came out with the Privacy Act and Title V to try to stem the tide of it, but people still didn't give it, that you're only required to give your Social Security number to governmental entities. You're not required to give your Social Security number to the credit bureau. All right, credit bureaus are not governmental entities. They're not in any position to have your Social Security number. So say what you want, talk about this. I never even understood what an attorney, that's why attorneys, when they start talking about negatively about the CPN, they try to conflate it with identity theft, because a lot of people were changing their identity. They were getting new Social Security numbers through babies that may have died, or newborn baby, or somebody in prison, or something like that. They were using their information to obtain a new identity. So they try to, when you read their articles, that's what they do. They try to conflate it with identity theft. But the proper procedure in getting a new CPN, and I will go over it briefly, just to give you a lead so y'all can understand what I'm talking about. Because y'all go out there and you'll do something crazy. You know, you should make your own CPN number. Now, if you go over to SBC University and go to our PDF download section, they have a document on here called Secrets of the Social Security Number. Now, this is an old book, and it needs to be updated, so don't use this. There's a new, let me see, SSN. Let me see if I can do it. I might can find it on another page.
Thank you for saying that, because I've read that document before, all of it, and
yes,
I actually learned from it.
Yes, it's old. All right, here it is right here. All right, so we're on the Appendix G, Social Security Number prefixes by state. Now, when you are creating your own, and I hate to sound like I'm trying to teach you to do fraud, I'm not, but people always asking me, well, how do I get a CPN number? And I actually taught one guy to make his own, and he started a business with it. I was selling them like crazy. But anyway, you have to study the SSNs. And first of all, you got to understand the first 3 digits of an SSN represent the state. All right. So if you look at on this list and look at your Social Security number, that represents the state where you were born. All right. And then the next 3 numbers, okay, and the last 4 digits. So you got to know, first of all, okay, I'm going to make me a number, and I was born in Texas. Well, mine need to start with 45 something or 4 something. So in Texas, you can see right here, it's 449 through 467. So the first 3 digits of my CPN number, I'm gonna use one of those numbers. Now the next 6, I'm going to make up. And then I'm gonna go to some website like SSN Validator, and I'm going to put the number in here and check to see if it's been issued. I'm doing this because I want to make sure that I don't get engaged in identity theft and steal somebody's number or use somebody's number that's already been used by someone else. Then I'm going to take it to someone maybe who has a mortgage company or something like that and let them run it to see if it's been flagged for anything. Okay, even if it is flagged, you can still use it if you know what you're doing. But that's a topic for another day. Another way people were doing it is when, like they're doing in the secure party process, you incorporate your name and just use that number to obtain credit, business and personal credit. The object of the game is to not even use personal credit, is to use business credit, because everything in this public is for businesses. That's what I got to get you to understand. The reason so many people are pissed off with the tax laws, pissed off with everything that's going on, because they don't have an understanding of the system. They don't understand how the system is. If you don't want to get taxed, you want no business, then get the fuck out the system. But that's your problem. You don't want to do that. You got this thinking in your mind, I don't have to do that, Yusef. I can live in the city and put my kids in public school and fuck all this other shit that you're talking about. That's your mindset.
Preach.
And it's going to get you fucked up. I can sit back and watch. You don't have to believe me. You can go make a video about me, talk about how I'm crazy or something like that. You're going to get fucked up. That's not how, you got to think the proper way. It's for business purpose. Even with the discharging of debt, you need to think of it in business terms. In business terms. The problem is you don't want to do business. You don't want to become a businessman or woman. Everything I see about this information is business. Everything is corporate. It's big. You're talking about whether government is corporate. All you're saying is they're conducting business. And they tell you that. Public is the government interacting with artificial persons. What does it say? If you pull up public law, right here, public law is that part of the law that governs relations between legal persons and the government. In law, a legal person is any person or thing that can do the things a human person is usually able to do in law, such as enter into contract, sue and be sued, own property, and so on. The reason the term legal person is that some legal persons are not people. Companies and corporations are persons. People ain't no people persons. Natural person is not a person. We a man or a woman. But they got to come up with colorful language because everything in the public is a legal fiction. The reason it's a legal fiction, because all this shit is in your mind. United States of America is in your mind. State of Texas is in your mind. Republic is in your, none of this shit is tangible shit you can touch.
Yep.
Your title, president, that's in your mind. This is all ideas. They floating in the air. So that's why it's a world. I talked to an attorney. He was telling me, we were sitting in his office, he said he made all this shit up. They made all this shit up. It's just a made up fantasy world. And they be getting us caught up in it. I think the best representation is that movie, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You got the toons and you got the real people. And then the toons were all the law officers. Go watch that movie, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and think about what I'm saying. The cartoon people and the real people. All right, so that's what, and we get caught up in it. Their world is about getting taxes. They get taxes through business. If there is no business, there's nothing to tax. If you don't have business, people ain't employed, people ain't working, there's nothing to tax. If there's no business, there's no taxes. Everything they do is about business and tax.
That's true.
There ain't any money. True. There's no money. There is no money. So they use the negotiable instruments. But there are rules to negotiable instruments. And you need to study the rules. If you study the rules, they can't come at you with no bullshit. Talking about this is a worthless piece of paper. Motherfucking Federal Reserve notes are worthless pieces of paper.
Yep. And when you say the rules, specifically the UCC, correct?
Yes.
Hell yeah, I'm learning it, man. Hell yeah. But I mean, I still got a long way to go.
Hold on for a second. I'm having some technical problems. Okay, there you go. All right. Okay. Is there anything else, brother, I can help you with?
Yes. One last thing. Off-topic question, though. Did you ever see the movie Dune? You know, the ones that just came out? Or I guess any of them, really.
Well, yeah, the spice must flow. Yes.
Flow, yeah. I thought it was like a trick when They were talking about that the Bezergerate, those priest women that created that religion, and then the people that live on that planet. They believe that there's a Messiah or whatever, and I couldn't help but think, holy shit, man! Like this is literally happening in our world. We look at Jesus as the Messiah, and I mean, I don't know if you kind of saw that connection, but that's what I saw.
I'm gonna tell you what I had. You had these different houses that were family run, just like you do today. These are the parts that people miss. That families run the world. It's families, okay? It's families that run the world. What you want to say? Rothschild, Rockefeller, Morgan, whatever, all the names that you hear thrown around.
Warburg.
Yeah, these are wealthy people. Wealthy people. I had a sheriff tell me that. I gave a sheriff's affidavit one time. According to law, here it was in Georgia. It's called a sheriff's affidavit. And he looked at it and tell me, he said, we were told to ignore those. He said, we only take our orders from powerful, wealthy families. He told me that. I couldn't believe it. My mouth hit the floor. Why? Right in front of somebody's house. They were evicting. He told me that. And I never forget that. He said, we take our orders from wealthy, powerful people. And all these counties are named after people. You know, like there are counties, when you go deep into that county, they're controlled by families. Like if you're in Georgia, Cobb County is controlled by 5 different families. It's 5 families that control Cobb County. Y'all got to start understanding that. This is why you want to get your own land and set up your own local government and your own police and police yourselves so you can do the same damn thing. You know, set up your own ordinances and things of that nature. That's what you're supposed to do in a free country. Yeah. Go get your own land and make your own community. There are communities that exist in this country y'all know nothing about. Especially if you're out there in Georgia, there's some communities out in those woods you'll come up on. I'm like, what the fuck? Houses and lakes and shit, and they got downtown stores and family-owned restaurants and shit, and you don't even know that shit is out there. And that's what they say. They say there are communities of people that know this information. They own a lot of land, and they don't speak to anybody. Those are the ones that know how to operate. They ain't operating right down in downtown Dallas or Atlanta. Lindsey Williams said, there's not one single super wealthy individual that lives in a downtown area. Not one. And we were told that long time ago, that to live in the city is dangerous because they can shut the city down in 10 minutes. That's why they have these rings around the city with these highways. It can be shut down in 10 minutes. All avenues out of the city can be shut down in 10 minutes. And they have you trapped in the city. None of them live in this. They all are taught this in their private schools, not to live in downtown areas. Dr. Malachi Z. York, if you were with his organization, he told us that. He said, go live in the country, do not live in the city. But you love these cities and you love these jobs. You love the devil because he gives you nothing. It's like, you don't want to grow your own. That's what happened in the country. What happened is, in the early 1900s, there were no cities like you see now. There were towns, but there weren't any cities. When they start making, that's why I tell people to watch the movie from Time Life magazine, The Men Who Built America. That's about Vanderbilt, who owned the railroads. I want you to think about the game Monopoly, too. J.P. Morgan owned the banks. Carnegie had the steel, and Rockefeller had the oil. Rockefeller's organization is still here. It's called Mobil and Exxon. They split them up, all right, to Mobil and Exxon. Of course, J.P. Morgan is Chase Bank. The Vanderbilts went broke. I don't know where the Carnegies are at right now, or what they turned into. But the steel and all that was used to start building cities, and people started moving out of the country into the city. When you were in the country, you had a lot of freedom. You were growing your own food. You're raising your own kids, educating them the way you want to, and nobody was really fucking with you at all. The only problem you would probably have is if you kill somebody or something like that. But if it wasn't something super serious, you rarely saw any law enforcement at all. But you come to the country and you're not stopping to think that in the country is the United States of America. I fly over this country all the time. There is so much. For somebody to say that the world is getting overcrowded is the biggest lie that there possibly is. Everybody on planet Earth can fit inside Jackson County, Florida. Every single person on planet Earth. All 6 billion, 7 billion people. There's plenty of land on this planet. There'll be centuries before this planet is overcrowded. Why are they trying to reduce the population? It's not because of overcrowding, it's because of control. They can't control 6 billion people.
Yep. All right, brother. Well, I appreciate your insight and all this. I'm going to go ahead and let go because I'm sure there's people on the lined up. Thank you for everything you do, brother.
You're welcome.
From Idaho.
You're welcome. All right, let me go to the next caller. Who we got on here? We got, what area code we going to go to right now? Gallivanting around the country. Let's dip over to, let's see. Where we at? We go down to Florida, I guess. Florida. 904-8010. Mic is open.
Yo.
Hey, what's happening?
What's going on, Yusef?
What's going on?
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and talk about this, or I got some questions. I don't know exactly how you're gonna react to this, but I got some questions I want to see, exactly how you answer these, and it's pretty much about substantive law, procedural law, and pretty much the application of procedure law when a person represents themselves in court or the people represent themselves in court.
Okay, go ahead.
So, like, if you and basically, I'm looking at it in the civil side, not the criminal side, because that's been my expertise or my experience. So, like, when you read federal law or federal civil procedure, it says in Title 28 that paraphrasing that none of the procedural laws should abide or abridge any substantive right. So, yeah, also the Constitution actually says that too. So my question is, I agree with like a format to write up paperwork when it comes to representing yourself in court and, presenting your paperwork. But I don't understand how they pretty much ignore any substantive issue until all of their procedural issues are adhered to first. So how are they able to do that? How are they getting away with that?
They're able to do that because they obtain jurisdiction over you due to some sort of minimum contact. And the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure do not violate any substantive rights. If you would go ahead and read, when you go to the law library and you get United States Code Services, the United States Code Annotated, or United States Code, okay, two of them are the burgundy books, and one of them is the turquoise and black book in the law library. If you read the introduction, which people should start doing, I read the introduction, it tells you plainly in there that the Supreme Court justices review those civil rules of procedure first to make sure there are no constitutional violations. Everybody in the public follows the procedure. Everybody. That's why when the police kill someone and they say, okay, we're going to do an internal investigation, all they look at to see is that they follow procedure. If they follow procedure, nothing's going to happen with them. Nothing's going to happen to them. People can get mad. They can see that, but he say he followed procedure. Go ahead.
So how are they enforcing us to follow procedure before we can get relief?
Because first of all, number one, you don't have access to the judiciary till you've exhausted all of your administrative remedies because of separation of power. So, as I said earlier, we have 3 branches of government. We have a legislative, that's your administrative. That's what these rules of civil procedure are for. They got procedures in Article 1 because they have to follow the Constitution. So the procedures are put in place to ensure there are no constitutional violations. That's why they have procedures. The whole purpose of procedures is to make sure they don't violate the Constitution. That's why when they don't follow procedure, you can appeal. When you go to the appellate court is reviewing to see if they followed procedure. Are there any procedural errors? If there are no procedural errors, they're not going to rule in your favor unless they do what is called a de novo review, which means to look at the whole case over from the beginning. And then when you get to the Supreme Court level, the Supreme Court level is only going to take cognizance of the case and issue a certiorari once you've exhausted all that, because they got to defer to legislative branch of government. They got to allow the legislative branch of government to give you a remedy first before they can step in. They can't step in. You've already done some sort of conduct that they had jurisdiction over. That's the issue, is jurisdiction and minimum contacts. You're talking about minimum contacts. That's what you don't understand. Just you using Federal Reserve notes as a minimum contact. That's the minimum. Putting your children in public school, getting a social security number, working at a job, getting a driver's license. All those are minimum contacts. They have jurisdiction over that. So if you get caught in some sort of conduct, a minimum contact is a conduct. All right, you enter into there are express contracts and implied contracts. Express contracts are contracts that are written out. Implied contracts are contracts that are a result of your conduct that you engaged in. Like, for instance, when you go to a restaurant and you sit down to eat a meal, you are entering into a contract once they bring you the meal and you eat it. You sealed the contract. And if you walk out and try not to eat, they're gonna they're gonna arrest your ass, even though you didn't sign anything. A lot of people, they don't know contract law either. They think everything is just a written contract. You got executed contracts, you got executory contracts. You can contract with an infant. People don't know that. You can contract with an infant, it's just an executory contract. It doesn't execute until they reach the age of majority.
Okay. So my thing is, when it comes to actually following procedure, when you want to present paper in court, is let's say you coming from the private side, right? And you want to, present paperwork in court. So you have to follow. Now, they're supposed to follow procedure. I understand why they follow procedure, so they don't violate, they don't make any constitutional violations. But the private people aren't a party to the Constitution.
You're not a party. You're not in the private no more when you come into the public. If you filing paperwork, okay, let's look at something, y'all. I want y'all to look at something. We're going to go to the Black's Law Dictionary again real quick. I want y'all to watch this. We're going to go to the Black's Law Dictionary again. Let's go to the Black's Law Dictionary again and see if we can get some understanding. What we need from you is understanding. Y'all remember that song? I need to hear that. We need to play that again. That was a jamming song. As easy as 1, 2, 3. All right, let's get to hold on. I'm pulling up my website right now. Buckle up my sleeve. Presto. All right, let's see. All right, so we're on my website. We're going to go to Black's Law Dictionary. And we're going to look up the definition of public figure. Public figure. We're going to go to Black's Law Dictionary. Let's go to the 9th edition. Public figure. That's what we're looking at. So we're going to go to the P's. I think it's in the P's. Is it in the P's? It might be in the P's. Let's see if it's in the P's. Public figure. Control F. Public figure. All right. Public figure. Appears 7 times. Let's see if I can find it. Public figure. All right, here it is right here. Public figure. Public figure. Right there. A person who has achieved fame or notoriety, or who has voluntarily become involved in a public controversy. What is one of my 4th rule? Do not participate in what?
Right.
Do not participate. Go on and say it with me. Do not participate in what? Public controversy.
Public controversy.
All right. When you voluntarily become involved in public controversy, you're no longer private. You are now a what? Public figure. Okay. So,
okay.
So let's look at. Wait.
Another question.
All right. Go ahead. Go ahead. Because I got a lot more too.
So,
I got a lot more too. Go ahead.
Okay. So let's say I do an administrative process. And, you know, I'm thinking everybody that's listening should know what that is. I know you do.
Yeah.
So I do an administrative process, and I file my paperwork in court. And according to what I've read, if you have your basically your administrative process or your affidavit that makes your complaint or whatever you're filing, well, I'll say because I'm sticking to civil. So if that makes your complaint, especially if you bring an issue to court, that makes your complaint a verified complaint. So at that point, I'm non-public or I'm non-governmental.
Well, I think wait a minute, hold on. You said a verified complaint. I would say that first of all, who initiated the action? If somebody else initiated an action against you, what you need to do is have a counterclaim. You had to have a claim. So when you enter into a counterclaim, then now that's what your administrative process will be, your counterclaim. If you initiated the action, then yes, it would be some sort of complaint. But if you didn't initiate the action and you're the defendant, it's not, you know, somebody's making a claim against you and you got to counter that claim. And the administrative process, all it does is create what are called facts, stipulated facts. In law, you have, in the court system, there's only two things, there's facts and law. You can't get to the law until you have the facts. The facts you only go to the law after all the facts have been stipulated to, which means they've been agreed to. If you don't agree with facts, then you have to go to a fact finder, which is a judge or a jury trial, and then go into fact finding, which is the actual trial. So if you can't reach an agreement with your adversary, as it says in Matthew 5:25, where it says, agree with your adversary while you're on the way to court, at least he hands you over to the judge hands you over to the bailiff casts you into prison, and I tell you, you will not come out if you pay the very last farthing or percentage of a penny, okay? What that means is, what they're saying is it's about agreements. So the administrative process is a process in order to obtain agreements, usually through silence or acquiescence. Because silence is acquiescence. So you can see that, like in Georgia, we have a statute where it's codified, failure to answer a business letter. Put in OCGA and then put in failure to answer a business letter. I forgot the code section. Actually, I'll pull it up for y'all right now. It's OCGA failure.
I actually know what it is, but I can't call it off the top of my head.
Now, I'm just showing you this as an example of how they codify certain principles of law. This right here is based off the principle that silence is acquiescence. Now, they don't say that in here, but that's a principle of law. And that's how statutes are written, based off principles of law. So in the ordinary course of business, when good faith requires an answer, it is the duty of the party receiving a letter from another to answer within a reasonable time. Otherwise, the party shall be presumed to admit the propriety of the acts mentioned in the letter of the party's correspondent and adopt them. So you agree to it, you adopt everything that's in there. This is a principle of silence as acquiescence or tacit procreation, okay? So this principle applies all through law. You just got to know how to enforce the principle. So when we do an administrative process, when we come into the court, what you're establishing is what the facts are on the record. These are the facts, Your Honor. Now, it's your job to present the law. The judge is not going to give you the law. It's your job to put the law into the evidence file. According to this law, according to this precedent, Your Honor, you are required to rule on this particular way. Once you learn how to use a case law, that's how you control the judge. Shout out to my man at Jurisdictionary. Yes, I did read your stuff and I did understand that. You control the judge by understanding case law. Precedent. The precedent.
I got another question.
Go ahead. You asking me about you asking me about procedure. And I'm seeing you don't understand it. You don't understand jurisdiction, and I'm explaining it to you, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want you to
to hold that thought, I just got one question, and it's in the lines of what you're talking about.
Okay.
Because you got case law, and then you also got maximum of the law. Can you use maximum law to instead of case law, or do you have to use case law?
No, because no. Listen, y'all. Stop that. This is some of that sovereign citizen stuff. That sovereign citizen. I got to start. I don't like using that word, but I'm going to have to flag something a certain kind of way. All right. So we're going to use sovereign citizen to flag shit that you need to stay away from. Red flags. All right. When they say certain things. Can I use the maxims instead of the case law? Let's look at some things real quick. All right, what is common law? What is common law? People really don't know what common law is. So we're going to see common law definition. What is common law? The part of the English law that is derived from custom and judicial precedent rather than statutes, often contrasted with statutory law. The body of English law adopted and modified, separated by different states of the U.S. and by the federal government. All right. It's also called judge-made law. Let's look at judge-made law real quick. Judge-made law. I want y'all to listen closely. When I'm about to, because this is very important for you to understand. Judge-made law is the law that is established by judicial precedent rather than statute. It is also the law that results when judges interpret statutes differently from what the lawmakers intended. This is also known as common law. So let me explain what common law is, and I'm going to do it very succinctly. And I'll leave it to some of the other judges to give you an in-depth answer. But very simply, it's this. The common law is known as unwritten law. All right, so there are a body of principles and customs that existed down through centuries, but it's unwritten. Okay, so, but it's a body of principles, and like he just said, maxims, things of that nature. All right, however, that maxim or principle doesn't come into reality until you have a controversy, a case or controversy. So we see how to apply the principle or apply the maxim in this particular controversy that we have. Everybody's situation is different. There may be the same principle that can be applied in different situations that are unrelated to each other. You might can use the same principle in a murder case as you do in a bank robbery or in a white collar crime. You may be able to do that. It just depends on the situation. But it's a principle and how that principle is applied to that situation. So what you're doing is when you use case law, you're finding a case of a body of facts that match yours, that the judges have already ruled on. They say, hey, look, man, we've already ruled on this. We had somebody come through the door a month ago, had the same exact case. If they had the same exact case, there's no need for them to adjudicate the same thing all over again. You've already adjudicated it. And here's the case citation to show you. However, if you have a situation that they've never heard before, that's called something novel, okay, meaning new, okay, and then they're going to have to look at it. But, and you won't have any citations of authority. Now you're establishing a precedent. Precedent law is common law. That is it, and people don't understand that. You have federal common law. Federal common law is the body of decisions in federal court. You're looking at federal common law when you get a United States Code annotated and you go, let me show y'all something. I'm going to show you common law. I'm going to show you principles. I'm going to show you principles in common law. Right here, when you go to my website, you'll see this Georgia, where is it at? Georgia Criminal Code right here. I went to the law library and I was looking up a statutory code, okay? The reason I was looking it up, because I just ran across this, because I was studying the commercial nature of criminal actions. And under the official code of Georgia annotated, this is Title 17, all right? This is a statute. This statute was written based off of some legal principle. I can't tell you exactly what the principle is, but it's something dealing with creditor and debtor law. But this is, and it's in admiralty. This is imposition of cost of prosecution upon the defendant generally. All right, this is just general. The cost of a prosecution, except the fees of his own witness, should not be demanded of the defendant until after trial and conviction. If convicted, judgment may, this word means must, may be entered against the defendant for all costs accruing in the committed in trial courts and by any officer pending the prosecution. The judgment shall be a lien from the date of his arrest on all the property of the defendant. The clerk shall issue an execution on the judgment against the property. So here we find, in Georgia at least, that when everybody gets convicted of any crime, there's an automatic lien that goes against their property. The only way the government can put a lien against any property of yours is they have to have a social security number attached to it. If not, it's private property, and they can't do that. It has to be something wholly in the public. Now, they use what is called a five-fade to do this. Now, down here is the common law. So right here, this was a legal principle that was cast in the form of a statute, and now the judges down here are taking different cases and then using that statute and interpreting it in different situations. All right? Like right here, jury's duty to enter judgment for a cost. A judge has no discretion in the matter of taxing costs. This was a case that came up and somebody questioned that the judge, it says may, so that means the judge got, has discretion to whether to tax the cost or not. So they had to go and say, no, while the word may ordinarily denotes permission and not command, the use of the word in that second sentence of this section cannot be construed to mean that the trial judge is vested with discretion in the matter of taxing the cost against the convicted defendant. All right, so right here you can begin to see, this is why you read case law, because you want to see how the judge took the legal principle and applied it to a set of facts. Once he does that and they reach a decision, that becomes into writing, and that's called the common law or procedural law or judge-made law. They all mean the same goddamn thing.
So if the principles that they're using to apply to any given situation, if that's how they're coming up with the determination, how is it that you can't use those principles before? I mean, and again, I recognize that if they already have citations and they
you can use principles. However, you got to make sure that principle actually applies to what you're doing. You can give it to the judge, and he can't. You can make it a part of the record. If that principle doesn't, now hear me out. When you go into an Article I court, you're going into an administrative court. The judges are administrators. They're not judges. They're called judges, but they are administrators. Administrators have a ministerial duty to perform. A ministerial duty doesn't require skill or anything. It simply requires them to follow instructions. So when you go in front of an administrator, he is following instructions. Okay, he does what, okay, that's why every time he says something, well, according to this OCGA, it says this, or this case law says this, he's following the directions of someone. He's exercising very little discretion in a lot of matters pursuant to that because he's an administrator. Once you get to the Supreme Court levels, now you're dealing with Article III judges or true judicial officers, all right, who are not bound by some by the legislature. See, when you go into Article I court, all those people are employees of the senators and the House of Representatives. They work for them. They work for that branch of government. That's why they get appointed. And they have to get reappointed every 4 years and things like that. When you're dealing with a real judges are appointed for a lifetime, and they're protected against salary diminution. You can't touch their money. They have to put that in place to make sure that a judge remains unbiased, that there's no threat of him getting his job taken because of the way he ruled or somebody taking his money. The Founding Fathers put that in there to make sure the judges can truly act like a judge and not somebody who can be bought out or somebody can be made afraid or something like that. That's the reason for it. So understand who you're dealing with. You're dealing with an administrator, and they're following statutes. Those statutes are drafted according to legal principles. And so you can use the principle if you want to, but the judge is here. How has that principle been used in a statute? That's all that judge is looking at. They're not there to follow that. Now, if you invoke something like equity or you got a contract, see, this is the next thing that most people don't understand. You only got rights when they're in the form of a contract. That's why you do an administrative process. So if you got some sort of remedy that they have had, you're supposed to be going into an equity court, not a statutory court. Equity is fairness, impartiality, and even-handed dealing. Everything that we're dealing with is done in equity. Because you know why? Because God judges with equity. God judges with equity.
When you have a contract, don't that contract naturally invokes equity?
It
like
can.
You already should be going into an equity court.
These are, they merged law and equity. So, but you got to clearly define. They merged law and equity after 1933 with all these clauses under the, what case was that? That was the, that case where that man was walking next to that railroad track and got hit by that thing sticking out of the railroad car. That's what they merged law and equity. But you got to still invoke it. You got to invoke it. You invoke it. Let me ask you a question. What is wrong with you taking the initiative to make clear on the record what your intentions are, instead of leaving it up to them to interpret? Okay. It's not their job to interpret what your intentions are. It's your job to do that. You're a grown goddamn man. That's another thing that y'all doing. Y'all expect the judge is just an unbiased arbiter in a dispute between two opposing parties. He's supposed to be neutral. He's just there to referee. It's your job to bring the law and everything to the court. Go ahead.
So back to this procedural thing, right? Okay, so I'm just going to create a scenario. I've done my administrative process, my notary. I've gotten everything stipulated to and acquiesced to. So and I'm talking about from the complaint side, not as far as the counterclaim. Okay. So I bring my case to court. I file my case. When it comes to procedure, again, I'm not I'm not in the public sector. So when I bring my case to court,
you are when you engage in a public controversy. Yes, you are. Because
it's not a controversy if I got the stipulated facts, right?
There's no controversy, so you're moving for summary judgment, is what you're saying. But you're still involved in the controversy. You're having the judge there to decide a controversy. That's why you're in court. If you weren't involved in a controversy, you wouldn't be in court.
Okay, I agree with that.
And let me tell you something else. If you truly handled it privately, like the UCC has self-help things in there, for you can handle things privately. That's like with John Wick. John Wick, these movies, they be telling y'all shit, and y'all look at movies for entertainment value when they giving you these movies to tell you what they gonna do, tell you how shit is going, tell you what technology they currently got. They educating you, and you all back eating popcorn thinking it's entertainment. They have to tell you what they're going to do, all right, so they can sidestep karma. So they're gonna tell you what is going on. All right, so when they tell you right here in John Wick, that's how they handled everything privately. They didn't have no cell phones. They did everything. They didn't use no computers. They typed shit out. They used gold and silver. If he needed some bodies cleaned up, he knew who to call. Private people, they all contract with each other. They don't involve nobody else outside their circle. Nobody else gets involved.
Okay, but see, this is the thing, right? Okay, so when I first do my administrative process, that's me handling it in the private side. If they ignore that and I get an acquiescence, I have a contract. Now,
how did they ignore? What do you mean? Wait. How did you initiate the proceeding and they ignore your paperwork?
Well, I mean, as far as not the proceeding in court, but I mean, like,
what was it? What is it about? What are we talking about? We talking about foreclosure? We talking about a criminal case? What are we talking about? Just tell me what kind of action we're talking about.
It's specifically civil, where let's say I'm going after a corporation for something they did to me, and I felt like it was, they did me a damage. They caused me damage or some sort of injury.
Okay, so what kind of action did you file? What type of lawsuit?
In this case,
was it a tort?
I would be filing a.
You filed a tort. What did you file? Tell me what you filed.
It was a. Now I'm slipping. It was a breach of contract.
What contract were they in with you if you said corporation did something to you? So you contracted with this corporation and they violated the terms of the contract. Is that correct?
Well, when they didn't respond to the administrative process, now they are in breach.
No, they're not in breach if they don't have a duty to respond. Wait a minute. They don't have to respond to an administrative process unless there's a duty to respond. Okay, so what duty do they have to respond to you? All right? What duty do they have to respond to you?
Let's say we're in business together. So I'm in business with this corporation.
You got proof of that? How are you in business with a corporation? So you have a written contract?
Yeah, there's already a written contract.
Okay, so did you put,
I get damaged in the process?
Did you put the contract in the evidence file?
No, I didn't do that.
Okay, so there's your answer. There's your answer. Contract makes the law. Okay, when you're in equity, the judge is going to read the contract. And then we can get to your administrative process as an exhibit to demonstrate that you've already attempted to resolve the issue of this clause in the contract, Yanni. You see this right here? They didn't do this. And here's my proof. I'm making this claim, and here's my proof of claim. I've corresponded with these people on two separate occasions, Your Honor. I corresponded with them. I identified the injury. I identified either the project or service or how, in what way they were actually in breach of contract. I wrote it to the appropriate address. As you can see right here, certified mail number, registered mail number. I have a notary presentment that it was attached to it as a witness to show that they did receive it. I have the 3811 form in evidence to also show that they did receive it and they signed for it, Your Honor. And then I wrote them again and gave them an opportunity to cure their default because I didn't receive a response back. They were directed to mail it back to this address right here, Your Honor, and they failed to do so. Okay, since they have agreed to remain silent, Your Honor, there is no material issue of fact in these matter, and I move for summary judgment on my complaint. And then let him, and he's gonna come back with something to say, hell no. All right, the other side, they're gonna say, wait a minute, objection, Your Honor. You know, we wanna deny summary judgment on the following grounds. And then the judge he's gonna be the referee. He's gonna say, okay, I think your answer is the better answer, so I'm gonna roll with you. And if you don't like the way he answer, you say objection, Your Honor, and then you state your objection, and he say sustained, overruled, and then you appeal it. You take it to the appellate court, and you make sure you have a court reporter there that's making a stenographic record of everything, because the appellate court is not going to rule in your favor if there's nothing in writing. So, for a matter to be resolved, it must be expressed. So what duty do they have? You can't just launch a administrative process in anybody and, they don't have a duty. In that code section I just read to you in Georgia, what did it say? It said when one has a duty to respond. A duty to respond.
Well, I mean, I totally understand that part. So my thing is,
like a mortgage company has a duty. A mortgage company has a duty to respond. A mortgage company does. Or someone saying that you owe them some money, writing you a letter saying that you owe me some money. They got a duty to respond. All right. Somebody trying to put you in prison. They got a duty to respond.
Okay, so let's say I go to Walmart and I get discriminated against or harassed or something like that. I get a police report about that, and that's my evidence that happened. Now, I have a implied contract with them based on me shopping in their store.
Well, first of all, where is your determination that it was discrimination?
That's just based on the.
No, you felt like it was discrimination, but I'm just trying to say who adjudicated that it was discrimination. Are you just saying it was discrimination?
What? No, I would only say that based on the laws that's on the book already.
Okay,
so
we got to get some sort of
discrimination or harassment.
So we need to get a determination from the courts whether or not the interaction between you and said corporation was actually discriminatory in violation of the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. All right. That's what, because we're talking about, this is a 14th Amendment question, Equal Protection Clause. because that's a corporation. They're incorporated under the federal government. Therefore, they're subjected to regulation by the federal government. The federal government is required to follow the Constitution. Thus, these corporations are required to follow the Constitution. And in the 14th Amendment, which is the Equal Protection Clause, it does not allow the federal government to discriminate. Thus, said corporation cannot discriminate either, Your Honor. So you need to start wording it in such a way where they can understand what you're talking about and how they're obligated to perform under some situation like that. But there needs to be some sort of determination, first of all, that that discrimination actually happened. See, what I see with a lot of people in this space also, they feel like something happened to them. They just feel they were wronged. They want to sue somebody and put a lien on somebody based off of how they feel. But they haven't received any type of adjudication in court that a law officer could enforce.
Well, I got a question.
Go ahead.
So, okay, if there's already, because like with me, I totally understand what you're saying when you're talking about feelings versus facts. I ain't talking about feelings. It's like, if it's a fact, let's say I want to press a case on harassment. There's already facts that pretty much lay out what harassment is. So if I have a situation that lines up with those, with the laws or the statutes or whatever the facts are, that's already been adjudicated when it concerns harassment, then I already have a case. So let's say that happens, and then I write the CEO and let them know, hey, I'm doing my administrative process, such and such happened, and I'm looking for such and such relief. They ignore that, and now I can go to court with that paperwork and let the court know pretty much, hey, they did such and such, that's against such and such. I did my administrative process where I wrote them, I let them know, I notified them. They had a duty to respond based on what you're moving for. Hold on.
That
they did.
Okay, here's the thing. When you go to the court, you're looking for summary judgment. The judge has to rule on that. Are you saying they didn't rule on your summary judgment?
Well, that's when procedure got in the way.
What do you mean procedure got in the way? If you file a complaint, the exhibit of your complaint should be your administrative process, okay? And showing that, hey, I've corresponded with this individual. There is no material issue. The only way you can go to summary judgment if there are no facts at issue. So there aren't any facts at issue. So now I'm moving for summary judgment, and I put that in a motion for summary judgment. And here's the reason why. There are no facts at issue, Yana. The defendant is stipulated to all of the points in there. I'm seeking a certain amount, this amount in damages, and I'm asking the court to award me damages. And the judge has to review that, and he has to give you a reason why he can't do it if he can't do it. He had to put it in writing.
So I can actually move for summary judgment. Like, are you saying I can actually move for summary judgment along with the filing of that complaint?
Let me read something. Let me read something to y'all. How many have you heard of a document called Creditors and Their Bonds?
Yes.
How many times have I told people to read that?
It's been a lot. I ain't studied.
Hold on. Just yes or no. Yes or no. Have I not been telling people to read this for about 10 years?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
That's a definite yes.
Okay. So let's look at something real. I'm not trying to be funny. Let's look at something real quick. All right. This is Creditors and Their Bonds. So in here, they have a bill in equity in here. And I'm just using this to illustrate something. I'm not saying you should use this or anything like this. I'm just putting a point out. This document was written, I think, around 2007. So it's about 17 years old. All right. I'm just telling you that to just show you how long people have been knowing this information. All right. Been a long time. This is not anything new. It's been around a long time. So right here, you have a, where is it at? I think it's after this. This is called a bill in equity. All right, right here, a bill in equity. Let's look at this. All right, jurisdiction in the matter is hereby granted by John Henry Doe, authorized representative for John Henry Doe, by way of sufficiency of pleading. See affidavit in support of amended complaint, bill in equity. The venue of this court is correct, as John Henry Doe does business in the state of so-and-so. That's the all caps name. And the all caps name is diverse from ABC agency. ABC agency could be anyone. It could be a bank. It could be a court. It could be anyone. Doing business in the state of blah, blah. And the amount in controversy exceeds $75,000. Parties. John Henry Doe, all caps, has established residency in the state of Texas for over 1 year. ABC agency demonstrates a residency in the jurisdiction of the United States and does business in that state. Here are the facts, okay? Plaintiff has exhausted his administrative remedy and comes to this court of equity with clean hands and in good faith. See Exhibits A, B, and C. What are Exhibits A, B, and C? Your administrative process. Your administrative process shows that you have come to this court of equity in good faith with clean hands. You've done everything to try to resolve the issue privately, and you, as a last resort, you had to resort to this court to have this controversy adjudicated by a judge. All right? So you have evidence that you've attempted to resolve this outside the court. Plaintiff has established judgment and estoppel. Judgment and estoppel is what the notary gives you. A judge gives you a judgment on the facts and the law. A jury gives you a judgment on the facts, okay, or notary. And a judge gives you a judgment on the law. So the notary, when they sent that certificate of non-response, that constitutes an estoppel. Don't try to bring this up after the fact. All right. Plaintiff has established judgment and estoppel against the defendant, as evidenced by attached the certificate of non-response, certified by the Susan Smith, the notary public for whomever. Plaintiff administrative remedy is res judicata. What is res judicata? Res judicata is Latin for a thing already adjudicated. It's already been adjudicated. There's no need to re-adjudicate it. Okay? We've already adjudicated it with what? The administrative process.
The agreement.
The agreement. Right. Failure defendant to respond in this matter is stare decisis. Stare decisis is to stand by things already decided. It's already been decided.
So,
plaintiff, wait a minute, let me finish. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
No, go ahead. What's your question?
No, I'm listening.
Plaintiff's administrative remedy is right. So, go ahead. Go ahead and ask your question.
No, my bad. You go ahead.
No, ask your question, man. Ask your question. Go ahead and ask your question. Go ahead.
All right. So again, that's where I'm having my issue is, it's like, okay, if I've done that, I'm presenting. Now I didn't. I'll be honest. I didn't present it verbally that well, but it's pretty much because I used like the video that you have when it comes to the administrative process. That's how I wrote my administrative process. That's how I did it.
Right. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Hold on. Let me bring something to everybody's attention. Okay. Right over here, everyone. Oh, shoot. Let me get over here. Right over here, everyone. You will see this right here is over on the SBC University. These are all documents on equity jurisdiction. All right, so let's see, congressional majority constraints, mandatory view, de facto corporation. Where is it at? Where did I just put that book? It's on the invisible contracts, term, way we law of opulence. Where is it? Memorandum of law and bills of exchange. This is one. Handbook of common law pleading. Where is the other one? This is a bill in equity. I think this is it. Let me see if this is it right here. Yeah, this is right here. Equity pleading and procedure. Okay, this is a badass book because it teaches you all the 10 different elements that would go into equity pleading. This is equity pleading and procedure. This is what you all should be studying if you want to deal in equity. Equity pleading and procedure. So when you get into here, it gets into capacity to sue, capacity to be sued, jointer parties, kinds of bills. Oh man, this thing is so good. On the rise of the chancery jurisdiction. This was a good lecture on the history. You know, professors always like to give history, which was very, very interesting. I also read the clerk's practice, and the first section of that gives you a history of the admiralty jurisdiction. And this right here talks about chancery, how it came into being. Really interesting how chancery and how finally they established the jurisdiction for it. You know, anything that is not within the cognizance of the statutory or the common law, it's in equity. All right, so the inadequacy of the common law remedies, if properly administered, is not for sometimes seriously felt. But go ahead. What's your question? Go ahead.
just the fact that, okay, when I present my case, they're more concerned about procedural aspects than the substantive issues. And it's like, okay, well, I got all the evidence that we have a contract. I've done an administrative process.
Wait a minute. First of all, let me say this. They follow procedures to ensure there are no constitutional violations. They have a duty to follow procedures because
they follow procedures.
They have a duty to, and you are required to follow procedures too if you're in their court. But you don't think you have to follow their procedures? Yes, you do. Where did you get this? Where did you get that thinking from right there? Let me go to Haynes versus Kerner real quick.
Okay, so
wait a minute, hold on. I substantiate everything I say because that's something I hear a lot. Y'all think y'all can go into the court and don't have to follow their procedures? Let's put a sovereign citizen stamp on that. I'm putting a sovereign citizen stamp on that. That's some sovereign citizen stuff right there. You see how I'm pointing out this sovereign citizen? I'm showing you the private processes, but we gonna root out this sovereign citizen ideology that has crept into all of these procedures where people think that they can come into the public and not have to respect the public. You're no longer in your domain when you come into the public. Let me tell you something. If just the fact that you came into court in some degree you're incompetent about something. Just the fact you had to come in there. Yes. You don't see the Rockefellers in there. You don't see the Rothschilds in there. You don't see none of these people going up in them. You don't see no powerful people going up in them courts or wealthy people. It's y'all going up in them courts.
So, again, like you said earlier, if you've done everything in the private to reach an agreement on the issue and the other party is not doing anything.
No, wait a minute, hold on. Let's not get off what we were just talking about. We're talking about do you have to follow the procedures? Because you keep talking about you caught up with the procedures. All right, the procedure follows natural law. Do you know how procedure follows natural law? Because procedure is based off cause and effect. If you do the same thing, you'll get the same thing. That's why you have procedure, okay? Procedure is public servants are under duties. So they are required to follow instructions. When you come in there with a controversy, you have just become a public figure, okay? Now, if we read Haynes versus Kerner, because we need some education on this. We need some education. We got to make sure that we ain't making up shit. That's what a lot of people do. It's called moosing, making up your own shit. That's what they'll do. They'll just come into this space and start making up shit. They start pulling shit out their ass, and that shit ain't came from nowhere. You start asking, where'd you get that from? Where did you get this shit that 3 notaries constitute a court? I looked for that shit. I ain't found it nowhere. Not in a history book, not in a damn statute, not nowhere. When they put stamps on negotiable instruments, I found that. And I have a book right there on myself. They call revenue stamps. And they're used when there isn't any money, when countries go bankrupt. So I always look to substantiate what people are doing. And if I can't substantiate it, I have to go with what's written in the law book. We're dealing with law and order, okay? It's called law and order. Law makes order. You can't have any order if there aren't any laws, all right? So when you're talking about procedural law gives you a remedy. Under that is remedial law. It gives you a remedy if you follow the correct procedure. So there's a procedure for introducing evidence. You can have your administrative process is your evidence. You just need to follow their procedure in order to present it the way they want you to present it. That means placing it on the correct pleading paper if they require that, having it double spaced if they require that, using the correct point on the fonts, 12 point. That's average what most courts use. They use Arial, Courier New, or Times New Roman. All right, you should know all of these things. Local rules of court, what the judges require. Go ahead.
So then that's my question. Then, okay, if attorneys go to school to learn procedure, and everybody should know the law. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. attorneys go to school for 10 years or so to learn procedure, but the average person doesn't do that. Why is it incumbent upon the people to know procedure in order to effectively,
you just answered your own question.
Defend ourselves.
You just there's a maxim of law. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Is a maxim of law. Okay, that's not just a saying.
Right.
Okay, so you don't anything that they publish, there's no excuse for you not to know. If you choose to go up in their courts, then you make sure that you read their laws. You chose to go up in there without representation. You get representation when you're incompetent. That's why you get an attorney, right? That's what they look at. You incompetent, so right. You don't know it. Then get you an attorney. That's what they'll tell you. Well, go get an attorney.
Okay, so question. So substantive law governs both procedural laws and anything under substantive law.
No,
right?
Substantive law.
So under.
Go ahead. Equity deals with the substance. Equity deals with, that's why I said go to an equity court. If you go into an equity court, you're not subject to all those statutes and all of that stuff. When you go into your equity court. So equity deals with substance. Legal doesn't. On that legal side, they deal with the substantive issues. If you're dealing with these procedures and all these code sections, that's because you're in a law court. You're not in an equity court. So, so you have to invoke equity. Okay. Gene Keating has a video. It's called Invoking Equity. I would strongly suggest that you watch it. It was a very good video. He used to have a video out called It's All a Tax, but it got taken off the internet. I ain't seen no trace of it. I ain't seen no trace of that video, man. That was a good video. That's definitely a video I hate I didn't save. I just assumed it was going to be on the internet forever. But I haven't been able to find it. It's called It's All a Tax. It's All a Tax. But that you need to watch that video on Invoking Equity and understand. I understand. I was kind of like that too. It took me a little time to start learning equity. The jurisdiction of equity. I had to read some books, but probably the best book that I've read thus far on it is right here on SBC University. This Pleading in Practice. Is Equity Pleading in Practice? This book is bad as hell, man. I would strongly suggest that people read this if you want, if you're in the administrative processes and things like that. This is definitely a good book. It makes you understand how to file your paperwork, of what he's talking about right now. Everything has to follow a procedure because procedure is cause and effect, all right? Things can't be just left willy-nilly to whimsical things. There has to be some sort of procedure for everything. So the police follow a procedure. Everybody, the firemen follow a procedure. All businesses have procedures that they implement for their officers. Everybody follows the procedure in the public. And that's because, law is man-made law, which is positive law, follows natural law. It has to, it has to. Natural laws run everything. They regulate everything. So they have to make their laws in harmony with natural. Do not think they're not making their laws not in harmony with natural law principles. They are. That's why all these guys who are in the government, they're like Masons, Illuminati, because that's what you study. And when you're in the Masonic Brotherhood, you study natural laws. When you're in the Rosicrucian, you study natural laws. That's what they study. Natural laws.
Okay. So when it comes to, because what I've experienced is what they do is they attack the presentation of your paperwork, and the main thing they always use is that you didn't
fail to state a claim upon which relief can be granted.
Right.
Yeah, that's usually what it is.
Even I wish I could actually show you.
I'm gonna tell you what it usually is.
Exactly what
I'm gonna tell you what it usually is people's failure a lot of times to be able to demonstrate some justiciable injury, some sort of injury that they've had, that's what they say is failure to state a claim upon which relief can be granted. That has a couple of meanings. It could mean that what you're asking for they're not able to give, or you did not articulate what your injury was cogently. It could be one of those things. It could be that. I wouldn't know unless I look at your pleading. See, when you look at people's paperwork, that's when the true story comes out. And that's why I am the way that I am, because I know how people are. They'll get on the microphone and start talking what happened to them. All right, let me see that paperwork. Let me see what you filed. You know what I'm saying? I see the paperwork. I say, oh, okay. I see why you did X, Y, and Z. You know,
I actually use the 12B defenses to construct my pleadings. Like, I ain't
so did you go get a? So did you get a form? Let me ask you a question.
Pleading.
Let me ask you a question. So did you go down to the law library and get a forms and pleadings book?
Okay, so that's gonna cover some other stuff, right?
Okay,
so
listen.
I think I might have messed up doing this. I used the federal form.
Use the federal form. Well, you might be able to do that. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. But usually what I do is I learn how to draft my own pleadings by getting me a forms and pleadings book. Every state has them. The feds have them. Matthew Bender, he's an attorney. He's like an elite in authority who puts them out. Westlaw puts them out. American Jurisprudence has some. All the states have them on their own. There are forms and pleadings book. Now, listen to me. When I first started learning this, that's probably some of the best things that I ever did is when I was going into the law library and the clerk told me to go get a forms and pleadings book if I want to learn how to write my own court paperwork. And so when I got those forms and pleadings book, they got a template for everything. That's what the attorneys use. The attorneys ain't drafting all that stuff from scratch. They're not drafting all that stuff from scratch they hitting y'all with. They got templates. They got templates they use. The templates.
Okay, so
go ahead. Go ahead.
That's my thing. Like, I apologize, but it's my thing. Like, so in my state, I used the federal form to file my case. It was the case for breach of contract, right? So I used that, and then I followed the instructions of that form, and it said on a separate sheet of paper, or however many sheets of paper you need, to write your pleading out, and that's where I wrote my pleading. It's a 10-point pleading. I used the 12B defenses to construct that pleading, but what I didn't do is I didn't write a caption of pleading, the meat of my pleading, a signature block, and a certificate of service on those separate sheets of paper because I already got the form, and that's what they attacked me on.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They attacked you on something on the form of your pleading. That's what they attacked you on.
But I mean, I followed their instructions to write it.
Well, I don't know. It doesn't.
I already got on the form. It's as if I drafted it already myself. Like I understand the format, the caption and the pleading. That's already on the form.
Right.
Okay. All of the other information is already on the form. So when I just write out my pleading on a separate sheet of paper.
Wait a minute, but let me say this. You saying that your opponent attacked that?
No. I got attacked from the judge themselves.
So the judge said what
on that case.
So the judge said, "What about your paperwork again?" What did he say? Just tell me exactly what the judge said.
I can't tell you right off the top of my head because I don't have the paperwork in front of me. I should have had it. I wish I'd have had it so I could read it off to you exactly what happened. But
listen, I've been doing this for a long time. Usually, the majority of the time, they give you a Rule 12b-6. Failure to state a claim upon which relief can be granted. That's what they usually hit most of the people
That
with.
is what you use.
All right, and it's usually something to the effect that it's something lacking in your pleading. Drafting a pleading is a science. Okay, I'm going to be straight up with you. It's like that's why I'm telling you, I'm giving you these books and telling y'all to study, because you got to really be able to articulate what the injury is. They got to have an injury that they can redress that is within their cognizance. Okay, that's what you got to address first. Do they have the ability to issue you a remedy for it? Number one, what is the injury? Is it an injury in fact? You know, these are the things that you have to be able to articulate. And if they're not articulated very well, then yes, they're going to say, okay, well, no, this is, and they do this to a lot of pro se litigants, because most pro se litigants, they aren't very skilled at drafting their own pleading, and they don't know how to make sure. That's why I'm telling you to get actually a forms and pleadings book, because the template will help you to concentrate on the elements that need to be present within the pleading, so nothing is missing. Okay, that's why you want to use a template. I mean, one time I first used a template. I think it was on I don't know if it was on abatement. No, it was a what did I write, man? I forgot what I wrote, but I got it out of this template book. And the judge wrote me back and said, I ain't seen nobody of pro se write something like this in a long time. But he didn't know I got it out of this template. I got the template out of this book. So it helped me to, okay, this right here, I got to put the jurisdiction right here. Okay, I got to state my facts right here. I got to state, rebuttal. It shows you where to put stuff on there. And and then it's left to you to actually, you got to be pretty good at writing and to fill in, to flesh it all out with what you needed to say, but it guides you. And so now you don't have to think, well, what am I going to put in this damn paperwork? And then you start just throwing mud at the wall and you don't know what the fuck you're doing. Now you got a guide that's showing you how to put the pleading together. That's what forms and pleadings books do for you. That was the best. That was some of the best stuff that ever happened to me. Getting that book. That's probably, getting those books and studying those books. Anything I wanted. A demure. I was doing a demure. I wrote a demure. And I got a copy of a demure out of a forms and pleadings book. And the judge complimented me. He was like, man, this is nice how you wrote this. And it was like, but it was a template. It came in template format. So it told me how to put my caption of the pleading together, how to title it, and then the different elements that need to be present in it. Everything is procedural with these people, even your emotions and all of that. They have to be constructed properly. So study this. If somebody rejects something you do, take it as a sign that you need to improve. That's how I would do. I got rejected. I got all that stuff too, 12B6s and stuff like that. That happened to me too. But it just took time. But I was at a point where I didn't know as much as I thought I knew. It was like, I thought I knew a lot, but I didn't. I hadn't taken time to study the rules of civil procedure because I was thinking like this individual right here, I didn't have to because I'm a private citizen. When in reality, the real issue is you're just lazy. You're just lazy. You just don't want to do it because you're lazy.
If the procedures are designed for them not to violate the Constitution and we're not a party to it, why are we doing it?
Well,
as far as presenting paperwork.
Wait a minute, what now? Say that again. What did you just say?
Okay. So as far as presenting paperwork, and again, I'm not against a procedural format, caption pleading, remedial pleading, a signature block, and a certificate of service. But again, if the procedures are designed, if they're in place and they're designed for the public not to infringe upon the constitutional protected rights that we have, if we're not
90
to
seconds.
the Constitution, why are we doing that to appease the court?
Well, that don't make no. I'm gonna try to answer your question. First and foremost, the Constitution governs in the public. Okay, number one, you have what's called a due process clause in the Fifth Amendment and the 14th Amendment. So you have to be afforded due process. I mean, you are innocent until proven guilty. Okay, but somebody has an opportunity. They can say, okay, well, this has to be in the proper format because it can't be adjudicated unless it is. Unless you have all these elements necessary, then we don't have, it's fair to state the claim because we don't have cognizance over it. All they did was just didn't rule on it. They just said, we can't do nothing with this. They didn't say you was wrong or nothing like that. They just said, we can't do nothing with it. So you're trying to force them to do something. You're trying to force an administrative court. All right. You don't have no right in an administrative court either. I want you to know that. You don't, unless you're accepting benefits and privileges from the state. Then you have a right to come in one of those courts. But if you're not, but you just said you're coming from the private, you're a private citizen. So if you're a private citizen, you shouldn't even go in those courts. You should be going into Article 3 court in the first place. You shouldn't even be going in this court. So these courts are created for artificial persons. For artificial persons and artificial entities. That's what it was designed for. I can read you a ton of stuff, to support that. But this notion that you don't have to follow the procedures, I'm sorry, I don't know. I've been doing this a very long time. You're definitely not the first person that has thought like that. I even thought like that at one point. But I had to come to the conclusion that I'm lazy. I don't feel like studying the rules of procedure and following their procedures. When it'd be very simple to do, and then just do what they want you to do in order to get my remedy. You know, you don't do it. Ain't about, in the public. It's not about what you want. It's about what they want. In the private, it's about what you want. A private citizen don't give you no Superman powers in the public. Don't give you none, as a matter of fact. It don't give you Superman powers when you're in the private.
Wouldn't that be, okay, so according to the Federal Civil Procedure, when it says that these rules shouldn't abridge any substantive right, wouldn't that be what that is?
No, that's not. That's not it. How is making you follow a procedure violating a substantive right? Just follow the damn procedure. Yeah, just follow the procedure. Ain't nobody.
Exactly, right? So,
well, follow the procedure, and you'll get your right. You'll get your remedy. A remedy is a right.
Okay, so they basically saying that if I don't follow their procedure, when they already stipulated that their procedure ain't supposed
that's not
to
what they said.
Any right,
that ain't what you just see now. What you are demonstrating to the entire world is you do not comprehend what that means. You don't comprehend why the procedures are put in place to ensure there are no constitutional violations. That is for them. If they follow those procedures, there's guaranteed to be no constitutional violation. How is that violating your substantive right?
What I'm reading to you is exactly what it says in federal procedure. It says that under Title 28.
Right.
I ain't make that up.
No, this say and they don't write them like that. Read it again. It says what? Read it again. What you just talking about?
I ain't looking at it. I'm not looking at it.
It says
I'm not looking at it.
And you know what? That's telling them they cannot make a procedure that's going to violate a substantive right. I told you to read the introduction of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure and the United States Code, and you're going to see the Supreme Court justices review the rules of civil procedure to ensure there aren't any constitutional violations. The reason for that, when they get their stamp of approval, they know that as long as we follow these procedures, you don't have no constitutional claim.
Okay, and again, so if
that's what that means.
That's what they supposed.
That's what that means.
I get that's what they supposed to be doing.
Right.
That's what I'm having trouble with. If they supposed to be doing that, why are they burdening people to do the same thing? You see what I'm saying?
Because
like,
you came into because you made an appearance in their court. That's like asking me when you come in my house and I tell you to take off the shoes, and you saying, why am I burdening you by telling you to take off your shoes? Is that what you're saying?
In that scenario.
You not no master in the public.
Right there.
Listen, private citizens need to stay in the private. They are not no masters in the public. I don't understand. They exercise what's called plenary power. Do you know what that word means? Plenary. Plenary. Plenary powers. Okay? Plenary powers, they all powerful in the public. This is why I'm telling people about public and private, because of people like talking like you. Y'all seem to not understand this. You think because you're a private citizen that in some kind of way that gives you some sort of status over them in the public. No, a private citizen is guaranteed the right to privacy. And you got to understand what that is. That means stay out of my business. But if you bring your business to them, you can't start dictating shit to them.
That's what they said. They said that.
Man, look, I'm finna go, man. I'm gonna go to the next call, man. I'm gonna go to the next call, bro. I gotta go. I got you. You don't get it. You don't get it. I gotta go to the next call. All right. Let me go to.
All right.
He don't get it. I'm not finna sit here and explain this to him. He just don't. He ain't getting it. I ain't getting it. Next caller. I don't know. You got 1-1. We got your number blocked. Who is this? Your phone line is open.
Hello?
Yeah, your line is open, man.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, what's happening?
So I was gonna take what's up, man? I was gonna take this little biblical with the law. I heard that Jesus walking on water was a reference to maritime law. You ever heard about that?
I've heard about that, but I haven't seen any evidence that that's what that's talking about. But yes, I have heard that that was Jesus walking on water. I've seen references to that before. Yes, I have. So what's your question?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
All right, so we can expand on that. So also a question too. Well, I was thinking back in those days, you just going around doing God's work. Did he have to did you think he would have to set up like a 501c, or did he just took it under his own belt? Because
no, they didn't do any of that because they used gold and silver. They used gold and silver.
You don't think they had anything at that time at all?
No. I know they had contracts. Negotiable instruments are contracts. They did have contracts. That's what a contract is. Contracts definitely existed in Caesar's time. Yeah, they existed, but they had gold and silver. So why do you need some sort of tax shelter? They asked Jesus, what did Jesus say? I'm gonna give it. They asked let's read this story, y'all, about Jesus Christ when they asked him, do we have to pay taxes? They asked Jesus, do we have to pay taxes? Jesus, tax question in the Bible. I forgot what verse. It's in Matthew. It's in Matthew and it is in Mark. Okay, yes, let's go to Matthew chapter 22. That's it, Matthew 22. All right, so we go to Matthew chapter 22. This is a very important verse in the Bible, too, because it definitely is related to what is going on today. All right, and let's read this. Start at 14. Let's go to start at 14. For many are called, but few are chosen. That's for all you people talking about that you've been called before God. I always hear you Christians say that, but you leave out the second part is that, are you chosen before God? It's not many are called, but few are chosen. There's some more of them people that don't know how to read. We walk around, I was called before God. So what? Well, you're chosen. Then went the Pharisees and took counsel how they may entangle him in his talk. That's what they do all day, is anything you say can and will be used against you. People are always trying to catch you in your talk in some kind of way, even when they're not skillful enough to do so. And they sent out unto him their disciples with the Herodians, saying, Master, we know that thou art true and the teacher, the way of the God in truth. Neither carest thou for any man, for thou regardest not the person of men. Tell us, what thinkest thou? Is it lawful to give tribute, i.e. tax, to Caesar or not? Now, Caesar in this case is the government. The Herodians, they like the FBI, the IRS agents, the authorities. Now, how are we going to get him to say something? How can we get Yusef to say something crazy about taxes right on YouTube? Let's call in and see if I can get him to say something. They never send people intelligent enough to accomplish it. You know, this is the thing about stupid people. They're like dead people. The dead don't know they're dead, and stupid people don't know they're stupid. Anyway, let me keep going. Tell us therefore, what thinkest thou? Is it lawful to give tribute unto Caesar or not? But Jesus perceived their wickedness and said, why tempt ye me, ye hypocrites? Why are you trying to get me to say something? Why are you trying to get me to say something? Show me the tribute money. Show me the Federal Reserve note. And they brought him unto him a penny. And he said unto them, who is this image in the superscription? They said unto him, Caesar. Then saith he unto them, render therefore unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. Federal Reserve notes belong to the Federal Reserve. All right? If you won't pay tax, that is the answer to the question. Now, what's your next question?
So, wait, hold on. So, give it Caesar what it's Caesar. So, was the Caesars, like the denarius, were they dealing with gold just with Caesar's face on it back then?
That's what, yes, he just said, Jesus just said whose face was on it. He said Caesar's. Okay. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar. That right there is public and private. The Caesar has a jurisdiction. We borrowed a lot of stuff from Roman civil law. Okay. He had a jurisdiction that he operated under, and that money. Let me tell you what the country's like right now. I want y'all to think about Costco. Okay, I don't know how many people got a membership to Costco. Okay, I have a membership to Costco. I like my membership to Costco. I even have a Costco credit card that has my membership on it. And when you go into Costco, they want to see your membership card. Now, Costco could very easily issue Costco bucks that are only good to be used inside the corporation, called Costco bucks. All right, you come into Costco, you stop at the front desk, you give them some Federal Reserve notes, and they exchange them for Costco notes, and then you go into Costco and you can shop with those Costco notes, and they only can be used in Costco. Well, that's the same thing with Federal Reserve notes. Federal Reserve notes can only be used in the Federal Reserve jurisdiction. So that's why the banks are member banks. Okay, everybody, all the businesses, they have to be registered with the Secretary of State. You are going into a jurisdiction, okay, that is regulated by someone. And they can determine what money is going to be used in there or whatever that they want. You can't come into that jurisdiction and start dictating anything. Now, on the private side, outside of that, we got the power to do whatever, which is really right now in the country. It's kind of in the country. You got to move out of the city into the country. You can't do that in a municipality is my point. And it's hard for people to understand that. And I've come on the scene from day one. So if all people say, oh, you're trying to renege. No, I started from day one talking about public and private and how they don't mix and how the superior man stays in his own domain. I've been saying this exact same thing for the last 10 years. And people still don't get it. It seems like they act like I'm telling them something crazy. And I'm not changing up. I know I'm consistent. I say the same thing over and over and over again. It's public and private. The Constitution only governs in the public. Contracts govern in the private. If you come into these courts, you're coming into the public. That's why I understood to look up public figure. If you voluntarily engage in a public controversy, and one of the rules is do not participate in public controversy. That rule is there so you won't get caught up in the public. A private trust is private until you put Federal Reserve notes in it or some sort of public property or engage in some sort of transaction with the public. Now you've tainted it. Now there's a tax obligation associated with it. Understanding how to operate privately means not having any contact with the public. But that's hard to do. That's hard to do today. That's very hard to do. Because you love the devil when he gives you nothing. You love the movie theaters. You love the restaurants. You love driving up and down the roads. You love living in an apartment complex. What you talking about? You ain't got no jurisdiction. Yeah, they got jurisdiction. This is what I'm trying to make clear in people's mind what freedom is. You are free. They will tell you this. You are free to leave.
So say if Costco was dealing just with gold, though, nowadays, it would stay public. Am I right?
If Costco,
private,
if Costco started using gold and silver,
yeah, and like no fiat was used in Costco.
As long as they won't never accept gold and silver as long as they register, they regulate it. But if they private, like you could start. Let's say some farmers got together and they like the Amish do or somebody like that, and they created their own type of Costco, and yeah, they wanted to accept gold and silver. They're perfectly well within their rights to do that. But Costco is a corporation, and they have a bank, and they bank with member banks of the Federal Reserve. So they got to use Federal Reserve notes. But yes, the main thing that happened in 1933 that affected your sovereignty was the taking away of the money. A sovereign has three things. He has land, he has money, and he has a way of protecting himself. You got to be able to protect your property and your land or whatever it is. That's a sovereign. You're not sovereign if you can't protect. If any one of those three things are missing, you're not sovereign. You're not sovereign if you don't have gold and silver. You're not sovereign if you don't have land. In this country, the only people who could vote in the beginning were landowners. Because that's what freedom is. You got land, you can do what you want to do because it's your land. I saw a video where a police officer was having an interaction with a guy skateboarding on the sidewalk, and he said, this is public property, and the police officer told him it was private property. And I thought about that. Now, like, that might be the truth. The municipality, because I know, like, Dallas, Texas, I think, is owned, all the land is owned by one individual, a wealthy gentleman. I heard, I haven't verified this, but it would make sense. All these counties, you see these counties are named after people. You know, these are the things that I don't think people are really thinking about a lot of times when they're saying, well, you're not sovereign. You know, it all really comes down to the ownership of land. You got to have some land, own some land, and you need a allodial title to that land. That's when you're going to really have it the way you want to have it.
Is that even possible, getting a allodial title?
Yes, it's possible. Yes, it's possible. You got to go through some adjudication in court because you got to sever all the minimum contacts. You know, that's what in that George Mercier's Invisible Contracts, he gives you some good pointers in there and what to do on that, how to file paperwork in court. But this is why I want to talk about why I chose the secured party method. The reason I chose the secured party method, it doesn't get into all of that. It doesn't get into, okay, I need to sever minimum contacts. It only concentrates on the fact there isn't any money. So whatever they're charging me with, they can't force me to pay any debt in a particular form or species of currency because that's against public policy. There isn't any money, really. There's no money. There's no money. There's no money. We're in now, let me just say this. Because we are operating in a Federal Reserve system, you need to go to them first and give them notice of what you're going to do. That's why the first step of the secured party process is just simply setting out notices, all right, and allowing them an opportunity to respond back to you, because that is addressing the principle of mens rea, criminal intent. No one can say that your intentions were criminal if you gave them a heads up and sent them a notice and asked them if they had any disagreement with that simply to write you back. So the first step is, look, I'm going to be filing a bond. Okay, this is the purpose of the bond. This is how I'm going to utilize the bond. These are the type of instruments I'm going to be used, and these are the type of circumstances I'm going to be using them in. And if you have any problem with that, please write me back at the following address. If I don't hear from you in 30 days, I'm going to presume that you have no problem with that. And I'm going to move on to step 2.
Now, I see people on social media. There's this guy, I think his name is The Truth. He sells non-citizen ID. So this is supposed to be like a private but non-U.S. citizen ID. Are those legit? And if they are, is that like you solving an ID card?
Well, let me put it like this. Anybody can make IDs. Hell, I used to make them. All you had to do is get you what is the name of those printers? I forgot the name of those printers. PVC card printers. It's like 2 different major companies that makes them. But anyway, you can make any type of identification you want. What you can engage in is forgery. You can't make an ID that looks like a state ID or a federal ID. You're gonna get charged with forgery. But if anybody can make ID, companies make IDs. Yeah, it's legitimate. Making an ID doesn't say anything. You know, you go into, you work for a major corporation, they got IDs they make. So, it's not, having an ID, a private ID is well within. The thing you're asking me is, will it be recognizable? Will the government recognize it? I think that's what you really want to ask me. Will the government recognize it? Are they required to? Let me ask you a question. When you come into Costco, okay, you come into Costco and you don't have a Costco membership card, are they required to accept a Sam's Club card?
No, but this is a republic.
You're not in the republic, you're in the democracy. When you came into that corporation, they operate in a democracy. They're not operating in the republic. In the republic, you got gold and silver.
No.
In the republic, you got gold and silver. There's no gold and silver. So they took you into a territorial jurisdiction where they have plenary power so they could utilize money that is not sanctioned by the Constitution. So don't use that argument that we in the republic. You're not in the republic when you engage in buying goods and services from these corporations. You're not in the republic. You're in the public. They want your social security number for anything you do in the public.
But if you're not dealing with any money, like say you just
It ain't just that.
you're doing
It's
whatever.
not just that. There are a lot of minimum contacts. Nobody has been able to identify what all the minimum contacts are, but I will attempt to give you a few. I'll attempt to give you a few. All right. So let's look at something real quick. Let's look at it's called Affidavit. I love this document. It's called Affidavit of Sovereignty. All right, this affidavit, I've always liked this because the history of it is strong. Let me see if I put it up here. The history of it is strong, and it touches on some things. So what it touches on is compelled benefits. All right. So let's read this real quick. I'm only going to start. I ain't going to start. It said, it's talking about, as such, let's look at it right here. Thus be it known to all in the nature of UCC 1-308, this changed from 207 to 308, that I reserve my natural common law right not to be compelled to perform under any contract that I did not enter into knowingly, voluntarily, and intentionally. And furthermore, I do not accept the liability associated with the compelled and pretended benefit of any hidden or unrevealed contract or commercial agreement. As such, the hidden or unrevealed contracts that supposedly create obligations to perform for persons of subject status are inapplicable to me and are null and void. If I participated in any of the supposed benefits associated with these hidden contracts, I've done so under duress for lack of any other practical alternative. Any such participation does not constitute acceptance in contract law. Because of the absence of full disclosure of any valid offer and voluntary consent without misrepresentation or coercion under contract law, without a valid voluntary offer and acceptance knowingly entered into by both parties, there is no meeting of the minds and therefore no valid contract. Any supposed contract is therefore void ab initio. Typical examples of compelled and pretended benefits are the birth certificate. All right, the fact that that a birth certificate was granted to me by a local hospital or a government agency when I entered this world is irrelevant to my sovereignty. No status high or low can be assigned to any other person through a piece of paper. Let's go to the next one. The use of identification number from a governmental agency. The number normally assigned to persons of subject status are used exceptionally under duress only because of the extreme inconvenience of operating without one in the daily marketplace. The use of fiat currency to discharge debts. I've used these only because in this country, there's no other widely recognized currency. The use of bank account with my signature of the bank signature card. If there's any hidden contract behind the bank signature card, my signature thereon gives no validity. You know, bank accounts is a big minimum contact. Past tax returns. Y'all filed tax returns in the past? Any tax returns I may have filed in the past were filed due to the dishonest atmosphere or fear of intimidation created by the tax collector and local assessors' offices. Use of a driver's license. That's stated. All right, state plates on my car. Declaration of citizenship. Every time on a document they ask you, are you a U.S. citizen? And you check yes. Past voter registration, marriage license, children in public school, use of semantics, and on and on and on and on and on. These are called minimum contacts, my brother, okay? All right, so if you are accepting any benefits from the government, they are going to have jurisdiction. Hello?
No,
I haven't, and let me just say this. I like to teach, the reason I like to use documents that other people have written from a long time ago, because I want people to understand that nothing has changed. It's still the same thing. And you had a lot of very intelligent people who've done research to come to get into an understanding of this. I'm not coming with something new. I'm not coming with anything new. I'm trying to make clear what the information is, because it's been a lot of bullshit that has been injected into it. And I'm trying to get all the bullshit out of it and trying to do it step by step so people can understand what to do. It's a lot of bullshit in this space, man. It's a lot. And then I have to catch the brunt of it because people come with expectations, and then if you don't meet those expectations in some way, that you now that you're doing some kind of scam or some shit like that. Like, look, man, I don't scam or anything like this. This is what they're doing in the criminal courts. It ain't no money. all of these type of shit right here. But you got to be right before you approach the situation. You can't have unclean hands or be a dishonorable person and then expect some sort of remedy to be issued to you. You know, it's like you got to make sure that you understand the law. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. All citizens should be required, should be studying the law. I don't understand why law is not taught from elementary school. That makes absolutely no sense to me.
I never was taught.
Children should be being taught law at an early age. That should be one. That should be reading, writing, arithmetic, law. Most people don't even know what their rights are. They be talking about their rights. They don't even know what they are.
No.
Go ahead.
Nah, you're not taught. So there's this old story on YouTube. He's got like a long white beard, and the titles in the videos are of common law. And how he views it is, you're both a U.S. citizen when you want and you need to, like with the Costco card, when you need to go to Costco.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Can you put your mouth on the phone a little bit better? I can't understand you. You're real muffled.
Is this better?
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's this old fellow on YouTube, and the video is entitled "Common Law," and how he perceives it is, when you want to be a U.S. citizen and use benefits and privileges, you're going in the Costco and you can card, you use it, and when you're not, you don't need to. You just identify as one is. Do you view it like that, or do you view it like that and work against it? And it's a little different. Am I making sense?
Are you asking me how I view the common law? Is that what that's what you're asking me? That's what I got from what you're saying. Somebody else talks about the common law, and you're asking me, do I view it that way?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't view the common law in any way. I know what the common law is. I just read it earlier, what it is. Common law is case law and judge-made law. What these guys are telling you with the common law is they don't have an understanding of, they have a little bit of understanding of the common law because it is, the customs and procedures and, things of a group of people within a certain place. However, what it is common law is unwritten law. It's a set of principles. Principles are not written. They're taken from nature. They're called a maxim or a principle because it's something that doesn't change. It's something that doesn't change. All right. So this is why, once again, a lot of the people who are judges and stuff are Masons too, because they study natural law. That's what you do in the lodges and everything. You study natural law. So you understand how natural law is connected to the law. And then you can see the principles. This is where principles come from. Principles comes from the observation of events, and they happen all the time over and over and over again. All right, so this common law is when you take those principles and you apply them to some facts and an issue that has come up. And then once the judge gives his opinion, that is the common law. That means the common law has come into the flesh now. Because judges make the decisions based off principles. I say this all the time. And the problem with a lot of people, they don't understand, they don't study principles. It's like that first Supreme Court judge he was giving a lecture at the University of Philadelphia in like 1700 or something like that. And the student stood up and asked him, he said, how are we going to learn all this stuff? How are we going to read all these law books? And he told him, you're not supposed to read all these law books. You're supposed to be learning the principles. When you read the principles, you can read the books easy. You don't need to read all them books. You can pick up anything and read it and understand what it's talking about. It's called the keys to something. This is why the Kabbalion is called the keys. It's called the keys because it's it decodes everything for you. It's I understand the principle of this, so why they said this now. All right, because it's this principle right here. You begin to understand, it gives you a deeper understanding of why things are done. You'll also begin to understand of why you can't go against it because it's based off of a principle, and a principle is something that is immutable. Now you learn how to govern your conduct, but you have to, that's why it's important that you study law. I've said it all the time. I think of people are lost. If the first thing you don't study is God's law, you're going to be lost. That's why you see all this chaos happening in our communities today, because this generation of children coming up, they have absolutely no spiritual teachings whatsoever. None.
No discipline.
Just straight physical. Straight physical. No spiritual no spiritual principles. You're giving them God. They hearing them words, Christianity and all that, but all that, they don't want to hear none of that. We ain't talking about that. We talking about natural. That's why you got to understand that religions are based off natural law principles. If they're not, they will come in, they will go out of existence. Nothing can stay in existence that's not in harmony with natural law principles. So when you teach them the principles and how that applies in everyday life, now they can have some interest in it. But you're not making that connection for them. Why is it that I have to be a virgin? Why can't I screw just as many men as a man screws a woman? If you can't explain that in natural law terms, you have no argument. If they not doing, if you can't explain it to them in natural law terms, you can't say they wrong. Anything will just be your opinion. So so a wise man told me one time, if you want to lead somebody to heaven, keep your opinions to yourself and deal straight with the facts. And the facts, the only thing that gravity cannot be argued. You start your baseline there in anything you engage in, especially in the realm of thought. I'm just telling you, it governs everything. And it's like you'll get an understanding of things. Because I know natural law principles, that helps me understand man-made law. I look at it differently. And so I understand what justice is, the weighing of the scales. I look at justice a little different. A lot of people think they have an entitlement to justice because they feel a certain way. Your feelings do not dictate anything. And that's what they teach in this society today too. They trying to put feelings above everything. That's what the liberal party does. And that ain't nothing but a recipe for chaos and disaster. That's chaos. The masculine creates order. That's why it has the strength. The masculine is the one that brings order. A man brings order in a home. You don't put no feminine energies over order. You don't do that. That's a masculine energy. Your emotions are whimsical. They're here today, gone tomorrow. Men, we channel our emotions through our logic and our reason. We're not here to be emotional like that, Not to say we don't have emotion, but a man knows how to control his emotion. You have to get in control of your emotion, and know how to channel it. It doesn't mean like anger can be a good thing. If a teacher will demonstrate anger to a student, but if it's controlled anger, meaning that he's doing it and because he's trying to teach him a point, then that's something entirely different. Instead of just some blind anger. But if it's a controlled anger, you can express that emotion because it's really a sincere demonstration that you care for the individual. So I'm going to reprimand you. But, anyway, I hope I answered your questions, brother. The thing is common law, you can study. There is on my trust book, I don't have it on the outside where I can pull it up, but Justice, I want to say, it's not Bouvier. I forgot the other justice's name. He gives a very short paragraph on the explanation of what common law is, and that's where I got my explanation. I think it's Joseph's story. I explained the common law. It helped me understand this common law so much. I started understanding common law when I started studying legal principles. When you study legal principles, the common law will become clear to you. It'll start becoming clear to you. You'll begin to understand it. But it's principles.
Yeah.
All right, brother. I got to get up. I got to go. All right. All right. Peace, God. Okay, y'all. Where is this thing at? Oh, shoot. Oh, here it is. All right, y'all. That's it for today. It's 9 o'clock. I got to go, y'all. I got to go. I got to go. I got to go. All right. Come back on the screen. All right. That was a pretty good little question and answer, though. But let me say this, too. I do, before I forget, I wanted to say this to the other guy earlier who I was talking to. I was trying to explain procedural laws. You know, I'm telling you what to read and everything. He's trying to make, it's individuals like that who ended up getting into, like, they go out and make a video about me or how I'm so wrong and all this kind of stuff right here. And I keep explaining it to them. And I can see where their error is. They want it to be one way of how they perceive it to be. They don't really understand public and private. I sit there and explain to him several times. I say, look, man, you don't have no authority in the public. But he kept on saying, well, I got to follow this. Like you can't make the connection. A private person don't have no authority in the public. That's the root of the problem. That's a sovereign citizen ideology. That's a major sovereign citizen ideology that I'm trying to get rid of. You're supposed to come into the public as a businessman. That's how you approach the public, as a businessman. That's why you wear suits in court. You're conducting business. All right? You're coming in doing business. That's it, you know, but it's hard to get that over to people. You know, it's just hard to get that. That right there, that point is hard to get it over to people. They think that me in private means being sovereign, and being sovereign means that I can tell public officials what to do, when if you understood trust law, you would understand that once the property goes to the trustees, you don't exercise no control of a trustee in an irrevocable trust. A trustee is king, is God in an irrevocable trust. Fuck what the settler and the beneficiaries are talking about. But people think that. I think they think beneficiaries have power over trustees too. I think they think that, you know, it's just, there's things that I see around. I'm just like, no, where'd you get that from? Where'd you get that? And you have to say something about it, because it's just ignorance and you're trying to stamp it out. So God has to send somebody aggressive to do this shit, because a real meek motherfucker wouldn't be able to do it. He'll just go along to go along. You know, that's what they want you to do, just go along with them. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to go along with you, bro. You're wrong, okay? They have procedures for a reason. There are procedures for a reason, to ensure that they don't violate the Constitution and ensure that you are given due process. It's called due process. You follow a process of law. You don't come in and make up the rules. They have the rules. Learn the rules. I don't know what else to say. That's just, you know, people, it's just laziness, because people really don't want to study them rules. Because it do take effort to do that. It take effort, but you voluntarily going in their courts, trying to get some sort of remedy for some sort of perceived injury that you have to articulate in a cogent way, and something that is cognized at the court, that's cognizable by the court. But I don't. Let's see. Where is the where are we at? Oh yeah, I'm trying to go back into the studio. All right, let's see where are we at. I'm trying to read something in the chat. I appreciate that. Lawyers always make sure to tell the judge, okay, that conducts my business here for the day, Your Honor. In a smirking voice, they know what they're doing. Yeah, I heard you do hear them say that the business before the court today. Man shouldn't think like that. Men should respect respectable respectable women. Welcome to live chat. Let's see. Can anybody in the chat explain who the trustee of a 9(8) trust should be? Whoever you say it should be. What you mean? It's not a 9(8). You know, if it's a private irrevocable trust, the settlor appoints the trustee. And then that first trustee appoints other trustees. And then you need to be able to identify a beneficiary. And you can't have a sole beneficiary, a sole beneficiary and a sole trustee as the same individual. That's called the doctrine of trust merger, and the trust will cease to exist. But whoever you have, you should put some responsible party you trust as the trustee and somebody who is responsible. But it depends on the property you're talking about too. What kind of property is going into the trust? Are you operating a business? See, those are the questions that you have to answer before we decide on what kind of trustee should be a trustee of a trust. Let's see, it says, if you don't know how you should be studying up on trust, don't go into something half-assed. That's exactly correct. So with asking them a Sixth Amendment question and then not answering be a violation of due process? No. How's that a violation of due? Well, I would say it is in a way. Yes, it is. I would say it is in a way. Yeah, I got a case right now. Somebody got out of jail because of that, because they appealed it. They have a due process right, so that is a violation of due process. Well, they don't reveal it to you, but you need a transcript. You need a transcript of it. But that is definitely a violation of due process. Definitely. That's a secret jurisdiction. That's a secret jurisdiction. You're being prosecuted in a secret jurisdiction that's known only to the judge and the prosecutor. How could that not be a violation of due process? It's crazy. I think that muffled caller meant how do operate proficiently as both private and public correctly. Use an unincorporated business organization. It'll teach you how. Operate through contracts. Do everything through a contract and use trustees and managers and people like that. You have to operate your life as a business. It's a business. I'm trying to tell you, everything is business. It's business. You have to think, your family is your business. Let me tell you something. The first unincorporated business organization you should put together should be a family trust, and have your members of your family operate the parts of the trust, because really at the end of the day, the ultimate business that should be on everybody's mind, especially if you're married to a woman, is your family. Your family is your business. It's a business. Run it like a business. It's a business. That's the problem. You're not looking at it as one. It's a business. Marriage license to conduct business. All right. Yeah, we just sent out an email today. We putting everything back. We revamping the entire website. It's being revamped right now. And but she should have sent out an email today. We got 2 courses that are going up today. So yes, the courses are coming back up. They are coming back up, definitely. If I wasn't educated. Hey, look, that got to be it, man. It's not, I've been on here too long. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Like, comment, and subscribe if you like the channel. Thank you for all the donations. I really appreciate it. I'm going to strive to be on here every day. I'm going to go back to taking calls every day. I used to take calls every day back in the day. I used to be on 5 days a week, and every day I take calls. Just let people call in, ask me questions, And, you know, and sometimes you're going to get into discussions with individuals who disagree with you, and that's fine. But, you know, make it based off of something that an understanding of law. You know, just don't read a maxim of law. You got to see how that maxim was applied in a situation. That's why judges are the interpreters of the law. That's another reason why you have to read case law, because it's not your job to interpret the law. It's the judge's job to interpret the law, to see how these maxims and principles are applied. Okay, and he can agree or disagree with you, but that's ultimately up to the judge to decide, because they're the interpreters of the law. And if you disagree with his interpretation, you can take it to another judge. But that's how ordered societies operate. The question that we are mostly concerned with is the commercial nature of the judicial system. That's what I'm primarily on here talking about. Y'all be calling in here asking me questions just to test my knowledge, which I have a lot of knowledge about a lot of things, but that's not germane to what I'm teaching. It's not germane to it. All right, so with that being said, peace to the gods and goddesses. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. I'm out. Peace.